Chapter 0301 _ Disappearing Shark Muscle. Shit. Death. Bana made an intermittent voice, spitting blood continuously, his expression suddenly grim, his waist and eyes twisted hard, the whole person turned over halfway in the big pit, his right hand stretched out behind him, and took the big knife wrapped in white cloth brought up. Big knife shark muscle. Inverse. Barna murmured, raising her trembling hands, struggling to complete the hand seal. Wow. The big sword shark muscle disappeared in front of Bana, and Bana was relieved, as if his whole body was exhausted, and he lay back limply. Call. The gust of wind swept across the pit, and Lu Han, who was running wildly, stopped abruptly. He just saw the scene of Bana sending the ninja psychic away. Bana, who was lying on his back and was seriously injured, saw the black-robed figure appearing on the edge of the pit, grinned miserably, and whispered again, "Cold light. Damn cold light." The knife was sent away. This guy knew he was going to die, and he didn't want to resist. The 7 ninja swordsmen of the mist. Compared with people, knives are more important. Before the last ninja war, at the beginning of the establishment of Kurigakure Anbu, the 7 people of the mist ninja swords existed. In the last ninja war, the owners of the 7 ninja swords also changed many times. The ninja war was extremely cruel. Yes, even the 5 shadows were killed, not to mention the 7 members of the ninja blade of mist. But this special ninja sword has always been in the hands of Kurigakure. It was mentioned in the original work that the ghost light full moon, who claims to be able to use the 7 ninja knives proficiently, has a scroll of 7 ninja knives, and after being impure world reincarnation in the 4th ninja war, he took out the scroll and directly channeled it. 4 of the knives came out. The reason why there are 4 is because the beheading sword was already in the hands of Momoji Zeibushu at that time, while the double sword, the flounder, was in the hands of Chengjuro, and the muscle was in the hands of Killer Bee. There were 7 ninja swords, 3 of which were in the hands at that time. Master, therefore, Ghost Lantern Full Moon can only channel 4 of them. The nature of the 7 ninja swords is very special. They can be channeled, they belong to the props channel. Just like Rashomon, but different from Rashomon, Rashomon comes from other worlds. After being channeled, the time is up. It will disappear, and the 7 ninja swords already exist in this world, so wherever they are channeled, they will always exist. What the hell is it if you can take the initiative to send it away? You want shark muscle, right? Ha, ha, cough cough. You can't get shark muscle. It has life. It won't recognize you as master. Barna grinned. Mouth, he vomited blood continuously, but he still had the mind to laugh at Lu Han. Perhaps, all he could do was laugh. Life, Lu Han murmured. He had long known that shark muscles have life, consciousness, and even their own preferences, which is very special. Perhaps, this is the reason why it can be actively channeled away. According to this speculation, the shark muscle disappeared, and it must have returned to the hand of the person who can channel the 7 ninja knives. Call, call. Lu Han suddenly felt chakra fluctuations in the forest 100 meters away in the north and in the bushes 60 or 70 meters away in the southwest. You don't have to look to know that it's a Kurigakure ninja. Lu Han only killed a few of the more than 20 Kurigakure ninjas just now. Call, 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 whoa. In different directions, distances are distances, different breaths appeared one after another. These Kurigakure ninjas are surrounded. Lu Han put away the blade of astonishment, flipped his wrist and took out the blade of Kurigakure, tilted his head and swept the surroundings coldly. No need to open the insight map, he already felt that nearly 20 Kurigakure ninjas were all around, the most powerful ones. The worst is also Jonin. In the pit, Bana suddenly stirred violent chakra fluctuations, and the breath was extremely violent. Want to explode. The moment after the breath appeared, a low voice sounded in Barna's ear. Lu Hanian flashed into the pit, the sword light like a rainbow, and slid across Barna's neck. The violent aura that just rose from Bana's body suddenly converged to nothing. His head was unexpected, and his head and body were separated. Blood spurted wildly in the pit. More than 10 pieces of falling objects exploded from Bana's body, turning into a streamer and drilling into Lu Han's body. Lu Han didn't rush, he squatted down and put his hand on Bana's body. He tried the deprivation technique 5 times in a row, but he didn't get anything. It's not the first kill, the success rate of deprivation is very low, whether it can be obtained or not is due to luck. Lu Han stood up calmly, the one-handed hand seal disappeared, and reappeared at the edge of the pit. Until this time, none of the Kurigakure ninjas who had surrounded Lu Han had attacked Lu Han. However, they were no longer hiding and were scattered about a dozen meters around the pit, some on trees, some on rocks, and others crouching against the big tree. All of them were holding weapons and staring at Lu Han. Although they looked calm, Lu Han could feel their fear. Perhaps, they do not feel that a dozen Jonin, plus a few elite Jonin, are not the opponents of Cold Light, but there is no doubt that whoever rushes up first will die first. That's why they are so slow, approaching, gathering, surrounding. You. Lu Han glanced around and made a hoarse and low voice, are you afraid? Hands on. Jonin, the Kurigakure elite with a rating of 40 white silver boss, suddenly burst out. Call. Lu Han waved his sickle, and the thick fog instantly filled him. 3 days later, the surrounding mountains and forests of the southwest mountains. Danzo and the other 9 jumped on the branches of the trees in the forest, and moved rapidly northward. Gen Kirin followed at the end. Danzo and Tsunade walked side by side. 3 days, they finally escaped from the dangerous central mountains of the southwest mountains, but the price was. Before they escaped from the central mountains, they had observed a dense fog covering dozens of kilometers in a radius, and thousands of people who went crazy, the same Kurigakure ninja who rushed into the foggy area to try to clear the fog and find the fog maker. The dense fog was created by Han, and all 9 people knew it well. This should already be considered a safe area. We will leave the enemy-occupied area of Kurigakure for at most half a day, and then you will go directly back to Konoha. Danzo spoke suddenly, and glanced at Tsunade. Tsunade didn't respond to Danzo's words. Whoosh! The rushing voice suddenly sounded, and it went from far to near in a very short time. Prepare to fight. It's a master. Danzo sighed in an instant. Chapter-302-boring art. Whoosh! 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 Gen Chinen all ejected, jumped under the tree, and formed a half-moon formation. Danzo jumped into the formation, and Tsunade followed, halfway behind Danzo. The 9 people were all on high alert, staring straight ahead. Listening to the sound, the person running here has already discovered Danzo and others, so Danzo and others are clear and do not need to hide. The sound of rapid movement was getting closer and closer. Tsunade even slowed down her breathing. She felt the pressure. Judging from the speed at which the other party was running, the person coming was really strong. Whoosh! The grass in front swayed, and a figure in tattered clothes and disheveled hair rushed out, and stopped in an instant. Tsunade and Danzo were both stunned. The person who came here was indeed extremely powerful. More importantly, they knew this person. Tsunade, you're all right, great. The visitor exclaimed excitedly, his eyes slightly panting to Yuhi. Jiraiya. Tsunade saw Jiraiya's extremely miserable appearance, burst into tears in an instant, and rushed over. Ah, don't come here. I'm almost getting maggots. Jiraiya shouted, waving her big hands. I was delighted that Danzo, who was here to find Jiraiya, suddenly trembled at the corners of his mouth. Danzo had always felt that Jiraiya was not in good spirits, and now he is more firm about this idea. Tsunade rushed in front of Jiraiya, stopped abruptly, and resisted not reaching out to hug Jiraiya. The taste on Jiraiya is a bit spicy to the eyes. Huh. Jiraiya let out a long sigh. Seeing Tsunade, he completely relaxed, sat down on the ground, waved his hand and said, Sir Danzo, come here, please. Help me rush, it's itchy. Danzo was stunned for a moment, but he reacted in an instant, and asked anxiously, you can't use sweetened water-style ninjutsu. It's sealed, that damn boiling rain. Lord Danzo, hurry up, I can't wait any longer. Jiraiya looked anxious and scratched her back again. Tsunade, who was already crying, saw Jiraiya's appearance, couldn't help laughing, and quickly covered her mouth. Secret technique. Super washing technique. Danzo quickly hand-sealed, and a stream of water spewed out of his mouth. A very unique secret technique. The water impacted on Jiraiya's body, turned into small streams, drilled into Jiraiya's clothes, flowed back and forth quickly, and drilled out of Jiraiya's clothes, gathered into dirty black water, sprayed on the ground behind Jiraiya. All the filth on Jiraiya. Even the clothes are still tattered, the hair is like a chicken coop, and the boots made of animal skins have holes and exposed toes. Still miserable. There is such a secret technique. Jiraiya turned over and jumped up as she said, "Sir Danzo, you created it yourself." Yeah, Danzo made a faint nasal sound, which was actually created by accident when he was developing other techniques. Why create such a boring jutsu? Jiraiya asked again bluntly. Danzo choked and glared at Jiraiya. Why don't you find a place with water to wash it? Tsunade couldn't help but chime in. I have a seal on my body. It was a very bad thing to say, but Jiraiya smiled at Tsunade. It's useless after washing. That seal has filthy power, while sealing my sweetened water-style chakra, and will attract stinky and dirty things to me. This sealing technique. Tsunade was a little stunned. This sealing technique was not unusual. Let me see. Danzo flickered on Jiraiya's side, raised his hand and grabbed Jiraiya's wrist involuntarily. Chakra poured out and shrouded Jiraiya away. Jiraiya was pulled by Danzo's arm and naturally would not resist, but his eyes were not on Danzo, but on Tsunade. Tsunade also looked at Jiraiya, smiled, but raised her hand to cover her mouth. She wanted to cry, almost cried again. Jiraiya was fine, she was crying, tears of joy, but looking at Jiraiya, Tsunade thought of cold again. Dahua changes the heart seal release. While Danzo checked Jiraiya's situation, he directly hand-seal. His hands raised a black air current, and then his right arm slammed and slapped on Jiraiya's abdomen. Boom! Black air swept Jiraiya. Okay. The black air dissipated, and Danzo retracted his hand and said calmly. Jiraiya glanced at Danzo in a daze, and quickly mobilized the chakra in her body. Then her eyes widened, and she blurted out, "The seal has been lifted." Danzo, the one of you is just a low-level sealing technique, it's just that you don't understand it. There are many ways to break this type of sealing technique. If your chakra is stronger, or if you have a huge amount of chakra like Tsunade, you can directly shock the seal. Danzo said lightly. Then that unsealing technique just now? Jiraiya asked with a wink. It's a very boring sealing technique that I created a few years ago. Even low-level sealing techniques can be forcibly broken. Danzo was expressionless. Jiraiya looked embarrassed. Jiraiya, did you just escape? Tsunade interjected again, not letting Jiraiya continue to be embarrassed. Yes. Jiraiya nodded, and immediately said anxiously, right. Kurigakure seems to be catching someone deep in the mountains, because that person attracted Kurigakare's attention, and I had a chance to escape. I thought it was before you, since it's not you or me, it must be Orochimaru. Just as Lord Danzo is there, we should go and save Orochimaru. With our strength, we should have a chance. Silence. Weirdly and suddenly, Tsunade was silent and looked at Jiraiya with pursed lips. Genkiren was as cold as ever, while Danzo looked at the two of them indifferently. What? Asked wrong. Don't do this, I'm very timid. Jiraiya asked blankly, glancing at Danzo, then Tsunade. It's not Orochimaru, there's no news of him yet. It was Danzo who spoke. Jiraiya turned to look at Danzo, paused before asking, who is that? It's the cold light. Danzo remained indifferent. Hengguang. Jiraiya didn't react at once, but immediately exclaimed, is it Han? Her head suddenly, Jiraiya looked at Tsunade again. Tsunade was already crying, 2 hot tears running down his cheeks. Chapter-303-320 Tsunade cried, so he just cried out, In front of so many people, crying because of this kind of thing, it was tears of sadness and pain. Jiraiya couldn't believe it. How could Tsunade, who always acted extremely strong, be here cry under such circumstances? She couldn't control her emotions. Why didn't you save him? You can, Jiraiya asked. He naturally knew Tsunade's feelings for Han. Tsunade raised his hand to cover his mouth and shook his head vigorously. Han Guang is already the #1 person on Kurigakure's lore list. Danzo explained. Kurigakure is catching him, at least using the power of a reorganized army, and the incomplete 7 people of ninja swords. And boiling rain. Jiraiya looked at Danzo with a blank expression. After a short silence, Jiraiya exclaimed, "What did this kid do?" "He saved me. He killed Munashi Oni 7. 2 voices, one trembling, one calm. Tsunade and Danzo spoke at the same time. Danzo glanced at Tsunade, looked at the sky again, then looked at Jiraiya and said, "Let's get on the road first. We can't save him. Whether he can escape alive is up to him. Let's talk about the specific situation on the way, we have to do it sooner. Go back and report the situation to Lord Hokage." After half a day, it was late at night. The western border of the country of Vortex, Deep Yamanaka at the border with the country of Fire, Konoha Temporary Scout Base. The stronghold, which had been silent after nightfall, suddenly became noisy, and the shocking news quickly spread throughout the entire stronghold, and was known to Akatsuki by the independent scout unit Hyuga Ninja and Anbu public. Danzo-sama is back. He also brought back Tsunade, Jiraiya, who had been trapped in the southwest mountains for 2 or 3 months, and 7 Anbu ninjas who had entered the southwest mountains with Lord Hangwang. But, don't see Mr. Hangwang. The cold light is not back. The command room, Danzo leaned on the desk with a serious expression and wrote hard. In front of the desk, Tsunade, Jiraiya, Anbu squad leader Senju Norihara, the interim leader of the independent scout unit Hyuga Zhaoyang, Anbu's deputy leader's entourage Might Dai, Hyuga Luo Ning, etc., stand in order of their identities. Tsunade and Jiraiya are standing. In the front, on the side is Senju Nozara. Snapped. Danzo wrote, slapped the pen on the table, rolled up the scroll quickly, and sealed it. It's urgent, send it back to Konoha as soon as possible and let it be opened by Lord Hokage. Danzo handed the scroll to Senju Nokara, and asked again with a solemn expression, have Lord Hokage sent an order for me to leave these days? Yes, sir. Senju Nozomi took out the scroll from his arms and handed it to Danzo, then quickly walked away with the information scroll that Danzo had just written. Danzo opened the scroll directly and glanced at it quickly, his face remained the same. Soon, he finished reading it, and with a flick of his wrist, the scroll was shattered. Lord Danzo, teacher, did he have? Tsunade couldn't help but ask anxiously. No, Danzo replied. He knew what Tsunade was asking, about exchanging the Tsunade 3 for Hongguang's life. Tsunade wanted to know if Sarutobi Hiruzen had made a decision and whether he had agreed with Kurigakure's proposal. Tsunade breathed a sigh of relief when Danzo replied. Danzo put his hand on the table, tapped his fingers lightly, raised his head and glanced at the crowd gathered in front of the desk, and said, it's all gone, don't gather here if it's okay. Scattered. Everyone was stunned at the same time. Naturally, they were not standing here for no reason, they were all here to wait for Danzo's orders. Lord Danzo, Tsunade's voice rose, a little excited, don't you make some arrangements? Shouldn't we do something? The situation is special, and we need to wait for Lord Hokage's order. Danzo said with a stern face, in this situation, I have no right to make special arrangements for Hangwang. A slight mistake may cause a large number of casualties of high-level ninjas, and they are all scattered. Tsunade, Jiraiya, the 2 of you. Rest tonight and make your way back to Konoha in the morning. In some cases it is not clear with just a few words. Tsunade and Jiraiya must report back to Konoha to Sarutobi Hiruzen. 2 days are enough to run back to Konoha from the border of the Fire Nation. Others heard Danzo's order and had already started to walk out, and Jiraiya also pulled Tsunade. "Sir Danzo!" Boom! Tsunade screamed angrily and slapped his hands on the table vigorously, leaving 2 deep handprints on the table. Danzo, still with a calm expression, glanced at Tsunade one last time, then turned around and disappeared into the chair. He didn't bother to argue with Tsunade, and it was him who said more shame because he had a higher status. Boom tilde. After Danzo disappeared, the desk blew up, and shards splattered all over the floor. Everyone else left the room quickly, and everyone knew that when Tsunade was angry, they should try to stay out of her sight. Tsunade seemed to be in a bad mood. After Danzo disappeared, she breathed faster, trembled with anger, and slowly clenched her fists. She knew that Danzo had the right to make some arrangements. As Hokage's assistant, he had great autonomy during his outings. He can issue any order, as long as his order does not conflict with Hokage's order. Have to admit that Danzo, Tsunade and others were able to escape from the enemy-occupied area so smoothly, mostly relying on Han, who took the initiative to bait. Why Tsunade was angry, she hated the way Danzo used to be businesslike. "I believe that the teacher will make arrangements." Jiraiya on the side hesitated before opening his mouth to comfort. "It's not just Han. There is no news from Orochimaru so far, teacher he." Tsunade didn't listen to Jiraiya, and turned around abruptly and walked out. Jiraiya was helpless, raised her hand and scratched her head, and followed Tsunade's footsteps. Tsunade had just walked out of the command room and entered the dark cave passage when 2 people flashed from the side, one tall and the other short, Might Dai and Hyuga Luoning. "Lord Tsunade." It was Might Dai who spoke. "Lord Hengwanghe. He's fine, he will definitely come back alive." Tsunade responded very quickly, paused, then glanced at Might Dai and Hyuga Luoning with slightly hairy Yuhi eyes, turned and left without saying anything. "He will come back alive. Will definitely. The murmuring gradually faded away. Chapter 0304 Horaishin begins _ The southwest mountain range of the country of Vortex, the southern mountain range. Another day at dusk, in the dense mountain forest, Luhan was lying on his back in the grass on the slope, looking up at Euhexia in the sky. The afterglow of the sunset passed through the gaps between the branches and leaves of the trees, leaving Madara's light and shadow on his face. Crunch. Biting the sweet and sour wild fruit, Luhan's face was full of satisfaction. For other people, escaping is a very hard and very sad thing. If you don't have enough food and clothing, you will always get dirty. Once you are injured, the whole person will become extremely miserable, but for Luhan, the above situation can be avoided. He has fled in the country of water for a few months. He has rich experience in escape, and he has a special physique. More importantly, he has room for a backpack. Luhan had stored a lot of food, water, clothing, and various daily necessities in the space backpack for a long time. But he would only take out those things from the space backpack when he was fleeing alone. "Bastard, why can't you comprehend?" Luhan muttered, throwing away the half-eaten wild fruit again, flicking his wrist, and there was a greasy chicken leg in his hand. Very fat kind. There is no time lapse in a space pack, so food doesn't spoil for long periods of time. It's so difficult. Horaishin can't fix it. And I can't escape. I don't know if Tsunade has returned to Konoha. Luhan muttered while biting the fragrant chicken thigh. At this time, more than 3 days have passed since Luhan killed Bana last time. As early as almost a day ago, Luhan sensed that Danzo had left the southwest mountain range. Luhan knew that if nothing happened, Tsunade would also follow him out of danger. Southwest mountains to the southern mountainous area. In fact, Luhan should have gone north. The way to the north was impassable, so Kurigakure narrowed the blockade, but completely blocked Luhan's way to the north. Many times, Luhan can escape in whichever direction he wants to flee. Kurigakure has already determined his general position, the strength of a reorganized army, plus various Kurigakure experts, to chase and intercept him. Luhan has to admit that if he didn't have insight into the map, he would have died long ago. And even if he had insight into the map, Lu Han had to work hard to escape. In this case, which direction to flee to is really not something that Lu Han can decide. Huh, a bunch of damn bastards. Here we go again. Lu Han, who was habitually opening the Insight map, saw a large number of Yuhi points entering the Insight map observation range from the north. One turned over and jumped up. Lu Han spat out the chicken bones and disappeared. Not long after, in the forest, Lu Han ran wildly for more than 100 meters, disappeared with one hand and disappeared in place, reappeared 200 meters away, ran tens of meters again, pinched with one hand again, disappeared and reappeared 100 meters away. Again and again repeatedly, Lu Han moved his position extremely fast. Unconsciously, the sky is getting darker and darker. This feeling. Lu Han appeared in the forest again, but stopped, with a look of surprise on his face. Recently, Lu Han has always had this feeling, the kind of feeling that seems to be the real existence of space. And just in a split second, he appeared in an instant, and the sense of reality in that space was particularly strong. Call. Lu Han disappeared in place again and moved in an instant. Instantly move. Instantly move. There was no more running. Lu Han continued to rely on the technique of blinking to move forward. Finally, when it was completely dark, Lu Han completely got rid of Kurigakur's tracking and appeared under a cliff. This feeling. That's the feeling. That's this. Lu Han couldn't wait to take out Kuwu, sat cross-legged on the grass, took a deep breath, and quickly hand seal. There seems to be a heartbeat, right next to Lu Han's ear. Lu Han is a little nervous and excited, but he feels that this kind of thing will probably disappear in an instant. He can't wait for himself to adjust his emotions and try again, he must immediately. Whoa! Chakra waves rippled from Lu Han's body, and his hand touched Kuwusheng. Quiet. Lu Han's heartbeat speeded up again, took a deep breath, and slowly removed the hand that was on Kuwusheng. Above Kanai, the complete Hiraishin technique ripples with extremely weak chakra fluctuations. There is a connection between Lu Han and Kuwu. Is it done? Is it done? Lu Han picked up Kuwu, stared wide-eyed at Kuwusheng's technique, blinked lightly. Lu Han waved his hand suddenly, and threw Kuwu away. Go out. Kai. Kuwu went straight to the sky along the mountain wall. Lu Han looked up. He could still feel the connection with the Kuwusheng technique. He kept his posture of sitting cross-legged in the grass, and he suddenly disappeared. Kuwu-ji flew 200 meters high. Lu Han appeared 3 meters away beside Kuwu in an instant. The control was very poor. Lu Han couldn't appear beside Kuwu accurately at all. Linkong twisted his waist. Lu Han rolled over and grabbed Hiraishin Kuwu, and waved his hand again to throw it in the sky. Kuwu straight up 300 meters in the sky. Lu Han appeared out of thin air again near Hiraishin Kanai, 2 meters above him. He was twisting his waist, his body fell down, and he reached out and grabbed Hiraishin Kanai again, and threw his hand again. Hiraishin was flying around in the sky, and Lu Han appeared near Hiraishin Kanai again and again. The distance was different each time. The farthest distance was 4 meters, and the nearest distance was 1 meter. This was caused by the poor sensory control ability. The problem, however, no matter it is 4 meters or 1 meter, Lu Han can forcibly move his position in the air, then grab Kuwu, and then throw it. After 10 minutes, Hiraishin Kanai shot to the ground, and when there were still 3 meters from the ground, Lu Han appeared out of thin air, grabbed the Kanai, and rolled over and landed on the ground smoothly. Ha ha ha, it's done, it's done. Lu Han laughed excitedly. After calming down, Lu Han sat down cross-legged again, took out another Kanai, and quickly hand seal. Wow! Chakrapo is turbulent. Lu Han put his hand on Kuwusheng, and then his face changed, and there was no sense of contact. Get your hands off. There is really no magic formula in Kuwusheng. The second time, it didn't work. Chapter-305 I have to get out of here. Why? What's wrong? Lu Han blinked his eyes, then put his hands together, and started to try hand seal again. Failed 3 times. Failed 4 times. Failed 9 times. Failed 10 times. Haraishin technique on Kuusheng, but the next 9 times, what was wrong with the 4 households? Yes. Chakra output is not stable. No, my chakra control is very strong, or it doesn't feel right. Luhan scratched his head a little, but he actually understood that the previous successful time, there was a feeling here. Feeling is very important. Space is an objective existence, but it cannot be seen or touched from the main point of view. When he felt it before, Luhan seemed to have touched the boundary of space. The boundary of space is everywhere. As long as the boundary is broken, the space can be torn apart. Now that there is no feeling, Luhan no longer knows where the boundaries of space are, so it is difficult for him to create a Haraishin technique that can truly make people travel through space. What a bastard, I'm not Naruto, so I can be so unstable. Luhan couldn't calm down. He is indeed not Naruto. Compared with Uzumaki Naruto, his talent is far worse, and the reason why Uzumaki Naruto is unstable in the original work is due to the influence of Kyubi, Nine Tails even chakra poor control. In this respect, Luhan is stronger than Uzumaki Naruto. However, after all, Haraishin is an S-level forbidden technique that is extremely difficult to practice. Luhan is limited by his talent. Success, continued, perhaps, his previous success was mostly due to luck. I need a retreat. I need a retreat. With the effect of the golden potion, if I can retreat for several days and nights in a row, maybe I can become a true master Haraishin. The thoughts are getting stronger and stronger, but Luhan knows that he can't retreat at all now. Luhan couldn't be more clear about his situation. Now let alone retreat, he can't even sleep well. I have to get out of here. Luhan stood up abruptly, picked up the kunai that already had the Haraishin spell on it, stared at it, and murmured, escape from here. ASAP. Konoha Village, Land of Fire, late at night. In a large room, dimly lit, around the round conference table, Sarutobi Hiruzen sat in the main seat, his fingers tapped on the table, his face expressionless. There were 4 people around, the same 4 who participated in the emergency meeting that day, advisors Kaharu Udatane, Homura Mitokado, Hyuga main clan chief Hyuga Huyang, and Anbu captain Hataki Sakumo. Since Tsunade and Jiraiya are safe, I don't think there is any need to discuss any further. Kaharu Udatane glanced around and said, Kurigakure deceives, has sinister intentions, and loses credibility. They will suffer the consequences in the end, and we will not need to do multiple choice questions again. Don't think about whether to give up Hangguang, but whether to save him. Since Hangguang is Anbu's person, it's up to Lord Hokage to decide. Kaharu Udatane finally looked at Sarutobi Hiruzen. I agree with Kaharu. Homura Mitokado followed, adjusting her glasses and stopped talking. Hyuga Huyang didn't speak. If Sarutobi Hiruzen raised other issues, such as whether to send more troops to the country of Vortex, he would give his opinion and express his opinion, but if it was about cold light, he still adhered to the principle of shut up. In fact, Hyuga Huyang really wanted to tell Sarutobi Hiruzen that saving Hangguang was not as difficult as going to the Kurigakure camp to grab Hyuga Heiang, but he knew very well that he couldn't say that. White Fang. When no one spoke, Sarutobi Hiruzen called out and looked at Hataki Sakumo. It's all up to Lord Hokage. Hataki Sakumo said directly. He has nothing to say. As captain of Anbu, he knows better than anyone present about the capabilities of the Kurigakure scout troops. Boiling Rain and Mundogen are all in the southwest mountain range. Now, even Hataki Sakumo doesn't have the slightest confidence, and he can't even guarantee that he will enter the southwest mountain range. If you can survive, let alone save people. In fact, Hataki Sakumo really wants to see Han again. But a lot of times, it's just so powerless. He's just Captain Anbu. If he's Hokage's assistant, he can say anything, mention anything, and even strongly suggest to Hokage. But he's not, so some things can't be said. If you want to save people, it is not impossible. Konoha can transfer the army to the country of Vortex and launch a general attack directly on the southwest mountain range, but in that case, the impact will be too great. The situation in the country of rain has deteriorated, and Konoha dare not act rashly. The kingdom of Vortex is a trivial matter. After all, it is another country, but if Sunagakure and Omegakure invaded and lost the northern part of the kingdom of fire, then the problem would be big. The meeting room was quiet for a while. "Let's go." Sarutobi Hiruzen was expressionless, tapped the table with his hand, and disappeared directly into the chair. Didn't get any useful advice, and Kaharu Udatane was right. Since it's just Anbu's business, Sarutobi Hiruzen should decide for himself. Sarutobi Hiruzen has made a decision. Shortly after, somewhere in Konoha village, a gloomy underground hall. Bright, dark, bright, dark. The flames in the 108 braziers around the main hall are repeatedly extinguished and rekindled. In the center of the main hall is a huge metal Jinchuriki column covered with curse marks. In front of the metal Jinchuriki column, the figure in the blood-robed robe was chained to his limbs and neck, dancing with his arms and legs, causing the chains to rattle continuously. Gia, someone is here. He is here. It's actually him. It's been a long time. I must have brought me a gift. This guy won't remember. Gia. Weird smile. A hoarse to harsh voice resounded through the hall. Call. In front of the entrance of the main hall, Sarutobi Hiruzen appeared out of thin air and shouted coldly, "Stop playing. I'll just play. If you have the ability, you will kill me." The blood-robed figure shouted strangely, still controlling the flames to keep extinguishing and rekindling. Boom. The terrifying chakra fluctuations erupted in an instant. At this moment, the air seemed to freeze, and the blood-robed figure felt hard to breathe. Okay, I'm afraid of you," the figure in the blood robe said softly. "Senluo, give you a task." Sarutobi Hiruzen restrained his breath and said solemnly. Chapter 0306_Senluo strikes. Mission. What task? It turned out that the great Hokage-sama came to send me a task. Where is the bastard Danzo? Senju Senro asked in a hoarse voice. Is he dead? No, he's not dead yet. Because I'm still alive. Sarutobi Hiruzen ignored Senju Senluo's mad words, and appeared beside Senju Senluo in a flash, handed a scroll to Senju Senluo's hand, and quickly said, "There are mission details." Mission. Senju opened the scroll and looked at it. A strange look flashed in his eyes. Save people. Go to the southwest mountain range of the country of Vortex and save the ninja codenamed Cold Light by Anbu. This kid is causing trouble again. It's more troublesome than me. Senju Senluo muttered inaudibly, and immediately turned his head to look at Sarutobi Hiruzen. A pair of Mangekyo Sharingan under the shadow of the Kabuto hat flashed a strange light. "Lord Hokage, aren't you afraid of me messing around outside? My condition hasn't been completely stabilized recently. Just don't die outside." Sarutobi Hiruzen said in a low voice. "You have to bring people back within half a month. What if you can't bring it back? Don't haggle with me, you know the consequences." Shao understands, Lord Hokage. Don't worry, Shao swears to complete the task. Senju smirked and flattered, and then whispered again, "Only if I don't get sick." If I get sick. By the way, there's another question. Senju raised his voice again, raised his hand and pulled the chain to make a crashing sound, and said yin and yang strangely. "Lord Hokage, this seal was set by the bastard Danzo." "Yes, it seems. Only he can solve it. Isn't he not in Konoha? Otherwise, why did Lord Hokage come in person? If he is not in Konoha." Boom. Senju could finish speaking. Sarutobi Hiruzen slapped the metal Jinchuriki column aside with a sudden palm. "Hold it down." The terrifying chakra fluctuations appeared all over the body again. Senju Senra didn't know what Sarutobi Hiruzen was talking about. His eyes widened and he blinked, as if he saw something interesting. The strong wind rolled up in the hall, and the center of the wind was Sarutobi Hiruzen. His arms shook slightly, and gradually, the metal Jinchuriki column covered with seals turned into Yuhi, as if Yuhi had been burned, but no heat was emitted. And then, the 5 chains connected to the metal Jinchuriki column also began to become Yuhi. and the Yuhi color continued to extend from the end connecting the metal Jinchuriki column. Oops, Hokage-sama, be careful, this is attached to my head. Senju snorted out of concern. When Senju Senrao's voice fell, all the chains turned into Yuhi, including the handcuffs tied to Senju Senrao's limbs and neck, all seemed to be on fire and turned into Yuhi. Snapped, crackling. The chains all shattered at the same time. Even the giant metal Jinchuriki column has cracks. Sarutobi Hiruzen actually destroyed the seal that Danzo had set. But Senju Senluo was not hurt in the slightest. Lord Hokage, you've become stronger again, it's really gratifying to congratulate. Senju Senluo flattered. Stop talking nonsense. Carry out the mission. Sarutobi Hiruzen drank impatiently. Okay. Senju Senluo sighed with a very tired voice, then suddenly raised his head and laughed again. Ha ha ha, I'm free again. Call. Senju Senluo turned into Yuhi light, swirled around the main hall quickly, and then rushed into the entrance of the passage, his breath getting farther and farther away. This guy, Sarutobi Hiruzen's iceberg-like expression eased, and he showed a complicated expression. Treating subordinates and Konoha people, Sarutobi Hiruzen, who is Hokage, is majestic, but not harsh. In fact, Sarutobi Hiruzen really wants to reason with Senju Senluo, but Senju Senluo is insane and cannot reason with him at all. Too lazy to talk nonsense. In the past 10 years, Sarutobi Hiruzen has seen Senju Senra very limited times, and he may not see each other once a year. If it is not necessary, Sarutobi Hiruzen really doesn't want to come to see Senju Senra in person, because every time he sees Senju Senra, Sarutobi Hiruzen will think of what happened back then. At the beginning of Konoha's establishment, the Senju family and the Uchiha family were both the Konoha branch Jinchuriki column, the two largest tribes in Konoha, and now Uchiha is still strong, while the Senju family has gone into decline. All because of that incident. That wrong experiment caused the Senju family to lose a lot of excellent offspring, which is the fundamental reason for the decline of the Senju family. Sarutobi Hiruzen admits that he has done wrong, but it is irreversible. Senluo, Sarutobi Hiruzen muttered, turned around and disappeared into the underground hall out of thin air. He had already thought very clearly that although Senju Senluo was very important, it was completely incomparable to Han Guang, so Sarutobi Hiruzen sent Senluo to go out to find Han Guang, and he had already made mental preparations. Even if Senluo fell ill outside and had an accident, as long as Han Guang came back, it was worth it. And if Senluo died outside, Han Guang didn't come back. Then this is his life. If Konoha wants to save people, naturally he has to pay a price, and losing Senju Senrao has little impact. Senju Senrao is a transparent person in Konoha and can only perform some special tasks at a certain time. For Konoha as a whole, it can even be said to be dispensable. With Senluo's current physical condition, he can live for at most 4 years, and he will die sooner or later. But having said that, Sarutobi Hiruzen still has high hopes in his heart. Senju Senluo can fly. With this alone, he can enter and exit freely in the southwest mountain range of the country of Vortex. As long as he moves fast enough, it is not a problem to bring out the cold light. But another premise: don't encounter boiling rain. As far as the 5 major ninja villages are concerned, almost every ninja village has powerful ninjas who are obsessed with the study of evil techniques. Danzo of the prime generation of Konoha and Orochimaru of the young generation are all peerless talents in this regard. And in Kurigakure, Boiling Rain is the ninja who studies evil and Grandmaster Evil. He has too many methods. Senluo's strength is not as good as Boiling Yu, and even if he can fly, he may not be able to escape from Boiling Yu. Antique room. As soon as Sarutobi Hiruzen appeared out of thin air, the door was pushed open immediately, and Hatake Tsukumo hurried into the house, looking like he had been guarding the door for a long time. My lord, Iwagakure has sent a message back, Hatake Tsukumo said quickly. Chapter 0307-Mysterious Assassin. Another 7 days. The situation in the country of Vortex is changing. The Uzushiogakure army captured the eastern port of the country of Vortex 2 days ago and regained a large area of lost territory. The Kurigakure army, who was defeated and fled, sneaked into the central forest of the country of Vortex. The Konoha mixed army led by Sarutobi Rodan completely blocked all the main roads outside the southwest mountain range of the country of Vortex, forming a siege situation, which seemed to launch a general attack on Kurigakure in the southwest mountain range. The combined forces of Konoha and Uzushiogakure seemed to have begun to gain the upper hand. Actually not. It was Kurigakure who changed tactics. The past half-month, Kurigakure has been continuously drawing ninja troops from the eastern port to reach the southwest of the country of Vortex, and then enter the southwestern mountains. Therefore, it is not so much that the Uzushiogakure army captured the eastern port, it is better to say that Kurigakure voluntarily abandoned the eastern port. Their strategic focus has all shifted to the southwest mountain range of the land of Vortex. The terrain of the southwest mountains is extremely complex, with high mountains and dense forests, and the coastal areas are located north of the mountains. This is very similar to the terrain of the land of water. Kurigakure's intention to gather forces in the southwest mountains is self-evident. Fight a protracted battle. There are pros and cons to doing so. The advantage is that if Konoha wants to retake the southwest mountains, he must invest more troops. The ninja of the Land of Fire is accustomed to fighting in the forest, not the mountain forest. Those are two completely different landscapes. Kurigakure has thus made it easier to control the southwest mountains. They have started to make a lot of lakes within the southwest mountains to change the southwest mountains into the terrain best suited for the Kurigakure ninjas. Disadvantage is that Kurigakure has to travel farther to increase its troops. From the land of water to the land of Vortex, the eastern port is the closest, and it is no longer possible to land from the eastern port, so you can only go by sea and go directly to the land of Vortex. Southwest coast. At present, in the southwestern mountain range of the country of Vortex, 2 integrated legions of Kurigakure have been assembled, as well as the independent legion that was mixed together after being crippled in the previous war. This gave Konoha a great threat. Because Konoha couldn't mobilize more power to break into the southwest mountains, Konoha's main army had been transferred to the northwest frontier of the Land of Fire, waiting for Sarutobi Hiruzen's order to enter the Land of Rain. The Kurigakure Legion is always threatening the border of the Fire Nation. As long as they leave the southwest mountains and go northwest, they can directly invade the Fire Nation. The southwest mountain range of the country of Vortex, the southern mountain range, the base camp of Kurigakure. The area of the building complex is already larger than before, and it is quite magnificent. Inside and outside the camp, there are countless bright and dark posts, and a large number of Kurigakure ninjas come and go. It is already dusk, but the scene inside and outside the camp is still busy. In the military hall, there was silence. There were no wounds on his body, and the pale-faced Kurigakure ninja corpse lay flat on the ground, his mouth half opened, and the skin of his entire body was blue-gray. Around the corpse, Boyu, Jongheim, and other 6 or 7 people formed a circle, and everyone's face was very ugly. The body was found half an hour ago in the forest 2 kilometers northwest of the camp, and no one knew how the ninja who was supposed to be patrolling died. Boyu's face was gloomy. He had just checked the corpse. There were no scars on the corpse, neither from the inside nor the outside, nor was it poisoned. The integrity of the meridians was not damaged, and the cause of death could not be found at all. And just because the cause of death could not be checked, it can be speculated that this ninja should have died of some very special and strange technique. This is Jonin, killed silently. The person who killed him was extremely powerful. This month, it's already the 9th one. Every time it's Jonin who dies, this assassin is always near the camp. Jongheim said with an ugly face, and looked at Boiling Yu again, "Sir." "I can't feel him," Boiling Yu said in a gloomy tone, and the coldness in his eyes was even stronger. "Shame. He was actually murdered by people in the vicinity of the base camp over and over again. But he doesn't even know who the other party is." Boiling Rain has the ability to sense in a wide range. It was with this ability that he tracked Tsunade, Hyuga Haeyang and others. This is an instant forbidden technique that is actively used, and each use will consume a lot of chakra, so boiling rain cannot be used all the time, he will only activate it when necessary. Just when the corpse was just sent back, boiling rain activated the induction, extending the induction range to the maximum. But, within 100 kilometers, he did not sense the strange chakra fluctuations. Judging from the time, unless the assassin master can move over a long distance, he must still be within 100 kilometers. That leaves two possibilities. First, the assassin did not transform chakra, and he did not have chakra on his body, so he could not sense it naturally. Second, the assassin master has a special ability that can block induction. Boiling Yu stared at the corpse, and after a long time, he said gloomily, "Is there any news about Han Guang?" "Go back, sir," Zhang Haim immediately respectfully said. "The last time I tracked down Hangguang was near the Sanfeng Valley in the central mountain area. After that, some traces were found, but I couldn't be sure that it was left by Hangguang." "A bunch of trash," Boiling Yu bit Kiba and said in a low voice. The other 6 people in the lobby bowed their heads and did not dare to refute, and the atmosphere suddenly became extremely depressed. They all know that Mr. Boiling Yu has been in a bad mood recently. Boiling Rain has been silent for too long. Before the war, Boiling Rain rarely appeared in Kurigakure, and even many young ninjas did not know Boiling Rain. And after the war broke out, Boiling Rain came to the country of Vortex, and he showed his amazing war ability. Under his command, Kurigakure completely stood his ground in the country of Vortex. Always have the upper hand in the general trend. So at this time, Kurigakure ninjas are both respectful and afraid of Boiling Rain. The war has been going on so far, and in the overall situation, Kurigakure has won. Boiling Yu should be happy, but he can't be happy. Cold light, that had stirred up the storm in the country of water for several months reappeared, and successively killed 3 members of the 7 ninja swordsmen including Munashi Oni, and completely disrupted the arrangement of Kurigakure in the southwest mountain range, forcing the Kurigakure gave up the plan to hunt down Tsunade, Jiraiya, or Orochimaru. And now, the mysterious assassin who has been killing people near the camp for nearly a month is more and more frequent. How can Bo-Yu be happy when so many things happen? "Pass my order and tell Mundogen to return to the camp," Boiling Yu ordered. Chapter 0308_Black_Lights. "Yes." The stocky middle-aged ninja standing opposite the corpse respectfully obeyed, and then walked away quickly. This person is the deputy commander and captain of the Kurigakure scout force. Since it is to let Mundogen return to the camp, it is essential. He, the deputy commander, needs to temporarily take over the tasks that Mundogen was performing outside and let Mundogen return to the camp. Order, he can go directly to convey it. "Sir." Zhang Haim watched the short and stout man go out, then looked at Boiling Yu, and said hesitantly, "If you let Lord Mundogen come back, then it's a matter of cold light. Let Mundogen come back to find the mysterious assassin first," Boiling Yu said heavily, and paused for a while, then. "Although the cold light is my Kurigakure's confidant, we can't completely change the situation in us because of him alone. Kurigakure's strategic plan in the country of the Vortex. Hangguang, he must die. Even if he escapes back to Konoha, he must die, but he can't be in a hurry. This subordinate understands," Zhang Haim said respectfully. "Yeah." Boiling Yu glanced at the corpse on the ground again, raised his hand to signal for someone to carry it out, and signaled for others to go out too, leaving only Zhang Haim. Soon, only Feiyu and Zhang Haim were left in the military hall. "Is there any news from Uzumaki Jinghai?" Boiyu asked. He let the others leave because he came to the Vortex Council to communicate with Uzumaki Jinghai. In Kurigakure, only Kurigakure Anbu knew about it. Speaking of which, Zhang Haim is the one with the highest status of Kurigakure Anbu in the country of the Vortex. "Go back to your lord," Zhang Haim said respectfully. "Reply over there, it is ready, just wait for the lord to mobilize the legion over there." "Well, good. Finally there was good news." Boiyu showed a faint smile, and the corners of his mouth were slightly raised, but there was a coldness. Send the news to Mizukage-sama. Tell Mizukage-sama, within 2 months, Kurigakure will definitely occupy the country of the vortex. A day later, in the southwest mountain range of the country of Vortex, in the southern mountain range. Another day at dusk, the sky was covered with dark clouds, as if there might be a rainstorm at any time. In the dense forest, the light is dim, and it is abnormally cold. In a ring-shaped valley, behind the huge stone that forms an angle with the mountain wall, the fire is burning, emitting enough heat to make people feel warm. The aroma is diffuse. The rabbit meat on the top of the fire has been roasted and squeaked and oily. Lu Han, who was sitting on the side, poked the fire with a wooden stick, staring at the half-cooked roasted rabbit meat, and kept gulping. It's been a long time since I've eaten something hot. Although there are still many things in Lu Hengkong's backpack, it's still not as delicious as the freshly baked rabbit meat. This damn weather. But don't rain. Lu Han looked up at the sky, muttered in a low voice, turned his hand over again, took out the detailed map of the southwestern mountains of the land of Vortex from his space backpack, and touched his chin. Research it. The fire was burning vigorously, and the smoke shot into the sky. This can easily be seen by Kurigakure,'s patrolling scouts and Fijian, but Lu Han is not afraid. The reason why he dares to start a fire in such an open place without trying to clear the smoke is naturally because he has the confidence not to be discovered by Kurigakure. This is the southern mountains, close to the base camp of the Kurigakure Corps. Normally, it should be more dangerous here, but it is not. For Lu Han, the central mountainous area is extremely dangerous. A large number of Kurigakure ninjas, flying ninjas, and search ninjas gather in that area, and they are still searching. On the other hand, in the southern mountains, because the base camp of the Kurigakure Corps is here, although there are also a large number of Kurigakure the ninjas are patrolling, but they are not blind, and because they are not blind, they are patrolling according to the planned route, so they will not encounter Lu Han by chance. There is a word called darkness under the light, which means that the more dangerous the place is, the safer it is. It means the same. The closer he was to the Kurigakure base camp, the easier it was for Lu Han to hide. At this moment, Lu Han was wearing the standard costume of a Kurigakure scout ninja. He disguised himself as a Kurigakure ninja and brazenly made a barbecue. Although this camouflage was full of flaws, it was enough to deceive the flying ninja and Asuka ninja flying from the sky. Beast. Lu Han spent a few days before to find out the patrolling rules of the Kurigakure ninjas around the base camp through the insight map. He knew that this valley is the place where the Kurigakure ninjas often come. Almost every few days, there will be Kurigakure ninjas arriving. Staying and resting here is one of the reasons why Lu Han dared to make a fire directly here. Even face-to-face with the real Kurigakure ninja, for Lu Han, who has 3 Tomo Sharingan who can cast demonic illusion, as long as the opponent is not too strong, it is easy to deceive. Well, let's go to Kurigakure base camp first. I don't know if boiling rain is here. If not, Lu Han muttered while looking at the map, thinking constantly. He has already planned how to escape the southwest mountains, that is, keep going south. Running under the eyes of Kurigakure, all the way to the southwest coastal area of the country of Vortex, it is easy to run after that. Kurigakure did not block the area outside the southwest mountain range. And Lu Han still has ideas. He wants to go to the Kurigakure base camp once before leaving. Naturally, it's not to do damage. He hasn't done that. He wants to save people. Hyuga Haeyong was detained in the Kurigakure base camp. With Lu Han's ability, infiltrating is not a problem, but the key is whether he can bring people with him. Come out. If you can save nature, you need to save it. If you have a chance, you should try it. The standard Lu Han set for himself is that if there is boiling rain, there is no chance. If the boiling rain is not there, there is a chance. Yuhi point displayed on the insight map is boiling rain. Lu Han will give up the rescue plan. What does it taste like? Looking at the map, Lu Han suddenly moved his nose and screamed, damn it. It's mushy. Leaving the map behind, Lu Han picked up the barbecue on the fire, and immediately showed a very tired expression. The side of the roasted rabbit was already dark and completely burnt. Hey! With a sigh, Luhan took out the kunai and cut off the burnt part of the roasted rabbit meat. Below the burnt meat was the cooked meat. At the same time, Luhan opened the insight map and used the Yu Guang glanced at it. Luhan, who had just opened his mouth to bite the roasted rabbit, suddenly stopped and blinked his eyes twice. 4 kilometers west of the center of the insight map, there is a blue dot and a Yuhi dot. All are at a standstill. Chapter 0309_Genius in Adversity. Teammate, who is it? Luhan slowly bit the roasted rabbit, thinking, and suddenly jumped up. Go and see. Call. Luhan jumped up and disappeared into the valley. Boom tilde tilde. The sky was covered with clouds, the thunder was loud, the wind was blowing, the branches of the trees were swaying with the wind, and it was more violent, and it was about to rain. In the dark mountain forest, Luhan ran fast and headed west. As he ran, he quickly ate most of the roasted rabbit meat. Then he threw away the skeleton and wiped his mouth. His movement speed suddenly increased sharply. Who could it be? Luhan frequently opened the insight map while moving, observing the blue dot and Yuhi dot. It was 2 people, one of their own and the other of the enemy, who had been in an unmoved state all the time. Luhan approached very quickly. Not long after. Hey! Luhan opened the insight map again, but found that the Yuhi point had disappeared, only the blue point remained, and the blue point still did not move, it was still in its original position. The Yuhi point was killed. It can only be like this, if it is to rely on the instant body to suddenly disappear and move to a very far place, then there is no reason for the blue dot to stay still. It will be. It's getting closer. Luhan ran for another 200 meters, then jumped up to the branch of the towering tree more than 10 meters high. Looking up, the third Tomo Sharingan opened in his eyes, and the world became more real in Luhan's eyes. About a kilometer away, Luhan saw a line of orange fonts under the heavy obscurity of lush trees and vegetation. Konoha Hokage is directly under the free quest ninja, Orochimaru. It's him. Luhan's face was overjoyed, he didn't expect to meet Orochimaru here. Although Orochimaru has never had private contact with Luhan, and the two of them have no personal friendship, but with the relationship between Luhan and Tsunade, Orochimaru at this time can be regarded as a real one. In the dark forest filled with humidity, a figure with a cold breath sat cross-legged in front of the big tree. The black air swirled around him, exuding an evil aura. His pale face could not see the slightest blood, his eyes were tightly closed, his brows furrowed slightly, as if in pain. Orochimaru. He looks very bad. Although the body is still clean, the clothes are tattered. Only the outermost cloak looks relatively new, but the cloak is obviously not his own, but stolen. His breath was very unstable, and the ends of his long black hair were a little white, which seemed to be some kind of disease. In front of Orochimaru, a middle-aged ninja of about 36 or 7 years old was lying on the ground without any trauma. He was wearing a Kurigakure scout ninja uniform. His skin was gray, but he had no breath and was dead. Orochimaru seemed to suddenly feel something, suddenly opened his eyes and turned his head to look east. A figure is approaching rapidly. Orochimaru can't see it yet, but he can judge by the sound of the sudden wind approaching. There is only one person. Strength is not weak. Orochimaru understood that since the other party was able to approach him in such a blatant and undisguised manner, he must have already discovered him. Trouble, Orochimaru whispered coldly, putting his hands behind his back. Whoa! Wearing a Kurigakure-style ninja uniform sprang from the grass 20 meters away. And at this very moment, Orochimaru, sitting cross-legged in front of the tree, shot up in an instant, and threw more than 10 kunai with his hand. Kuwu turned into black light, burst into formation and shot towards the people who came. Hey! Luhan didn't even have time to explain. Orochimaru's kunai was too fast, and it was a shrouded attack in a formation. Luhan's heart tightened, and he directly triggered the surgery on his arm. Shadow Flash. Luhan entered the ultra-high-speed movement, but it was not a straight line. He was already in the second stage of Master Shadow Flash, and he approached Orochimaru in a curved way during the movement, dodging all the swift shots of kunai, and arrived in front of Orochimaru almost in an instant. Orochimaru disappeared from Lu Han's sight the moment he arrived. Immediately, a terrifying sense of crisis enveloped Lu Han, and the danger came from behind Lu Han. "Master Orochimaru, it's me, Han," Lu Han shouted while dodging. As soon as Lu Han finished speaking, his sense of crisis disappeared, and the terrifying and evil aura quickly moved away from Lu Han. "Huh." Lu Han stopped and breathed a sigh of relief, turned around to look, but saw that Orochimaru had retreated 30 meters away. His hands were in the hand seal motion, his eyes were as sharp as blades, and Lu Han's eyes were facing each other. At this moment, in Lu Han's eyes, Orochimaru is Yuhi's name. Konoha Hokage is directly under the Free Quest Ninja, level 60 elite, Orochimaru. Level 60. He has reached level 60. Lu Han was shocked. He knew that Tsunade, Jiraiya, and Orochimaru had similar overall strengths, but each had their own strengths. Tsunade was a level 50 gold boss, but Orochimaru has reached level 60. Thoughts flashed quickly in Lu Han's mind. Maybe Orochimaru has made a breakthrough recently. Almost a month ago, he, Jiraiya, Tsunade, Hyuga Heian, etc., were attacked by Boiling Rain and the 7 ninja swordsmen. This may be the biggest crisis the three of them have encountered in the past 10 years. It is a terrifying catastrophe that forced them to be separated during the mission, and all three were injured. Genius always grows in adversity. The horror of Orochimaru's talent. Needless to say, in the original book, he was regarded as the #1 successor by Sarutobi Hiruzen, but it is a pity that he embarked on a wrong path. After a lot of people, he was finally discovered by Sarutobi Hiruzen, but Sarutobi Hiruzen couldn't bear to kill him, so he let him escape from Konoha. Have to admit that among the three Tsunade, Jiraiya and Orochimaru has the best talent. All three are only 21 years old, and they must all grow up, but they don't necessarily grow at the same time. There must be a front and back. Orochimaru is the first to enter level 60, which is understandable. The two looked at each other. Lu Han was a little stunned, but in his eyes, Orochimaru's Yuhi name quickly turned orange after a while. He didn't have any ill will towards Lu Han at all. He had shot at Lu Han before, but it was because Lu Han was wearing Kurigaku's ninja suit, and he didn't see Lu Han's face clearly in time. "Why are you here?" Orochimaru asked nonchalantly, dropping his hands. "To save you," Lu Han replied. Chapter 0310-Lu Han and Orochimaru. "Save me." Orochimaru's tone was strange. His eyes swept up and down Lu Han. He could now confirm Lu Han's identity, Lu Han's breath when he used the shadow flash, his habitual tone of voice, and his Orochimaru is familiar with that face, and he is confident in his ability. He doesn't think that someone can pretend to be someone he knows in front of him. But Orochimaru doesn't think Lu Han is here to save him, can he? Yeah. Lu Han smiled. Orochimaru was very cold, but he is such a person, Lu Han naturally wouldn't mind. "I'm here to find Master Orochimaru, Master Tsunade, and Master Jiraiya. Come to the southwest. The mountains have been more than 20 days. Boom tilde. Lightning flashed across the sky, and thunder exploded. Immediately, the dark clouds poured down a light rain, and the rain curtain misted the mountains and forests, and the rain continued to grow. Lu Han and Orochimaru looked up at the sky at the same time. Lu Han tilted his head again and looked at the corpse of the Kurigaku ninja on the ground, then looked at Orochimaru and said, "Lord Orochimaru, it's inconvenient to speak here, let's find a place." Orochimaru responded with a nasal voice. ... Into the night. The torrential rain enveloped the forest, and the bean-sized raindrops formed a rain curtain, making the forest and mountains all blurred and dreamy. 60 kilometers northeast of Kurigaku Base Camp, under a cliff, several towering trees formed enough shelter in front of the mountain wall. A small but deep cave with a fire burning to dispel the darkness. Luhan and Orochimaru were both leaning against the stone wall in the cave, sitting on the left and right of the fire, facing each other. The rainstorm has been falling for a while. The rainwater on the mountain flows down the mountain wall, forming a water curtain at the entrance of the cave, dividing the inside and outside of the cave into two worlds. One is windy and rainy, and the other is warm, comfortable and quiet. I'll discuss with Danzo-sama, I'll do it. Luhan told Orochimaru what happened when he entered the Southwest Mountains for so long, raided Munashi Ghost 7, found Tsunade, and met Danzo. Orochimaru listened, with little expression on his pale and bloodless face. Only when Luhan said he found Tsunade and found that Tsunade was seriously injured and dying, there was a flash of coldness in his eyes. I plan to continue to go south. Although it is very close to the Kurigakure camp, it is much easier than going north. I didn't expect to meet Lord Orochimaru. Luhan finally said. Be quiet. Didn't meet Jiraiya? Orochimaru asked indifferently, looking directly into Luhan's eyes. No, Luhan shook his head, but I estimate that Lord Jiraiya has probably escaped from the Southwest Mountains on his own. Kurigakure is concentrating his forces to arrest me. Relatively speaking, it is easier for others to escape. Lord Jiraiya is very strong and it will not be easily damaged here. Quote. You killed Munashi Ghost 7. Orochimaru whispered, turned his head to look at the rain curtain outside the cave, and seemed to be thinking about something. After a while, he suddenly turned back to look at Luhan, sat up a lot and asked, Be my apprentice and I'll teach you, how. Orochimaru had this idea more than half a year ago. It was after Luhan killed Fei Ren, but the situation was different. Now Luhan can be called the powerhouse of the world. Although Orochimaru is stronger than Luhan, he is not too much stronger. In this case, Orochimaru wants to accept Luhan as a disciple, but it is a bit strange. Lord Orochimaru, I think we still have to get out of here first, and then talk about other things. Luhan said euphemistically. In fact, he is very contradictory. On the one hand, Orochimaru does have something that Luhan can learn. The secret technique and forbidden technique created by Orochimaru, although most of them are vicious and hurtful, Luhan doesn't mind, no matter how vicious the technique is, it's enough for the enemy, but Luhan doesn't want to waste time on hard cultivation. As a subversive, even if there is a shortcut to take, he should work hard, but if he always relies on his talent for penance, it would be a bit of a waste of time. Luhan knows his talent. With talent alone, it is impossible for him to subvert the world. Orochimaru didn't say anything, and looked at the rain curtain outside the cave again. He didn't force it. If Luhan was someone else, he might have said and written more or did something, but Luhan is Tsunade's disciple, so Orochimaru naturally wouldn't force Luhan, so he would not be able to face Tsunade. Lord Orochimaru, are you injured? Luhan asked hesitantly. Orochimaru responded with a nasal voice. Sure enough, Luhan said in his heart. He had seen it before. The corpse of the Kurigakure ninja where he met Orochimaru did not seem to have been killed in a normal way, and Orochimaru's face was also a little abnormal. The white on the ends of the hair can make people see the problem directly. Lord Orochimaru, do you want? Let me see for you. Luhan said again. You know medical ninjutsu. Orochimaru looked at Luhan. He knew that Tsunade had never taught Luhan medical ninjutsu. Understood a little. Luhan nodded without explaining much. He was the deputy captain of Anbu, so he didn't need to explain. It's the residual damage from the seal. Orochimaru explained directly without letting Luhan check. I forcibly broke Boiling Rain's A-level seal, but it damaged all cells and meridians. I have treated myself several times, but it has never been completely cured. Can you cure it? Quote. Orochimaru was vague when it came to a certain technique. Luhan understood that Orochimaru didn't want others to know about the jutsu he created, and he didn't even want to say the name of the jutsu. From the previous Kurigakure ninja corpse, it could be inferred that the jutsu used by Orochimaru for self-government was obviously not a healing ninjutsu, but some kind of jutsu. The evil forbidden technique that requires deprivation of another person's life to be effective. Treatment. It can be cured. Lu Han continued, my master has a technique that can treat residual damage from seals. That is, it has side effects. What side effects? Orochimaru frowned. Pain. Ultimate, pain. Lu Han said heavily, I used that technique to treat Tsunade-sensei's injury, and after that, Tsunade-sensei didn't allow me to use that technique on her. Because it was too painful. You actually know how to do this? Orochimaru seemed a little distrustful of Lu Han. Chapter-301-320 Hyuga Heiyong. Lord Orochimaru, you should believe that I'm a genius. Lu Han smiled lightly, a seemingly narcissistic and even a bit arrogant expression. In fact, it can be used to avoid many problems. Lu Han said that he was a genius, he did not what needs to be explained, whatever Orochimaru thinks. There are too many ways for ninjas to acquire techniques. The most direct way is to learn from the village. In Konoha, even if it is A-level ninjutsu, as long as it is not forbidden technique and the ninja's strength reaches a certain level, you can request to learn. In addition, there are other ways for ninjas to acquire skills. Such as killing enemy ninjas, discovering the method of cultivation from the opponent, or being gifted by more powerful ninjas, or, in Lu Han's identity, from it is also possible for Anbu to learn individual forbidden techniques. Lu Han still didn't explain, and Orochimaru didn't ask any further questions. It hurts, isn't it? Orochimaru said nonchalantly. It's very, very painful. Lu Han emphasized again, but the healing effect is excellent. Come on then, as long as it heals my injury, nothing else matters. Orochimaru was stern. Late at night. It has been 4 full hours since Lu Han used the original creation technique to treat him. The cave, Orochimaru sat cross-legged in the cave, his whole body was soaked with sweat, and there were beads of sweat on his forehead and face. Behind Orochimaru, Lu Han also crossed his knees, pressing his hands on Orochimaru's back, Yuhi light surging. Treatment time has been very long, but in fact, Orochimaru's injury is not as serious as Tsunade's injury, and the reason why the treatment took so long is because Lu Han's chakra consumption is too fast, but he did not use the medicine to restore himself. The chakra, 3 minutes of treatment, 15 minutes of rest, another 3 minutes of treatment, and another 15 minutes of rest. Lu Han is treating Orochimaru in this way. Therefore, although 4 hours had passed, the actual treatment time for Orochimaru by Lu Han was only about half an hour. After a minute, Lu Han took away the hand that was placed on Orochimaru's back and slowly retracted it. Okay, Lord Orochimaru, I can't feel the effect of the treatment. Your injury should have healed, or you have an injury that I can't treat at all. Lu Han opened his eyes and continued, looking like he had just the Orochimaru fished out of the water couldn't help but exclaim in admiration. Real man. Orochimaru naturally felt the pain, his whole body was soaked with sweat, naturally it was in pain, but he didn't say a word from beginning to end. Lu Han got up, walked to the fire at the entrance of the cave, picked up a wooden stick and poked the fire, and added some more firewood. The firewood is a little damp, so the smoke from the fire is thick, but it is still raining heavily outside the cave, and the smoke will be washed away by the rain and will not be observed by the ninja from a distance. Inside the cave, Orochimaru crossed his knees and closed his eyes, his chakra fluctuating from strength to weakness. He's doing pranayama and examining his body. His face was still very white, but not the extremely morbid pallor that he had before, and the whiteness of his hair had disappeared. Healed, Orochimaru's voice came out suddenly. Lu Han, who was sitting by the fire at the entrance of the cave, turned his head and saw that Orochimaru had opened his eyes to look at him, and said, "That's good." Orochimaru looked at Lu Han with strange colors. The healing technique Lu Han used on him surprised him. After a pause, Orochimaru said again, "Thank you." Orochimaru actually said thank you. "You, welcome, it should be." Lu Han smiled. New day, early morning. The rain has stopped, and the air is extraordinarily fresh. In the cave, Luhan and Orochimaru woke up one after another. After Luhan treated Orochimaru's injury last night, they didn't say much and both rested. After the two woke up that day, they didn't say much. They both left the cave temporarily and searched for food in the forest. Luhan hunted a wild boar, while Orochimaru picked some wild fruits and was still closest to the cave. The lake caught the fish. Afterwards, both of them returned to the cave and made a fire to cook. The two of them spent the next morning in the cave. After eating, the two began to discuss plans to escape from the southwest mountains. Orochimaru's attitude towards Luhan changed a lot, and he talked a lot more. Orochimaru agreed with Luhan's escape plan to continue to go south. Although the extreme south of the southwest mountains is already the rear of Kurigakure, it's better not to be found. Once found, it will inevitably bring death threats. There are many experts in the Kurigakure base camp, but it is indeed easier to go south than north by comparison. Around 10 in the morning, inside the cave, Luhan and Orochimaru sat opposite each other, with a map scroll spread out between them. Actually, the most difficult thing is to pass between these two mountains. If we walk up the mountain is too high, the trees and vegetation at the highest point are few, and it is easy for Fenin to see. If we can't go up the mountain, we can only walk here. Luhan pointed to the map and glanced at Orochimaru, but it's very close to the Kurigakure camp. It's worth a try, it's already the best option, Orochimaru said. Well, I think so too. Luhan nodded, then paused and said, by the way, I have another idea. What? Orochimaru looked up at Luhan. Go to Kurigakure camp once. Luhan pressed his finger on the location of Kurigakure camp on the map. The camp is here, not far from us, and we have to pass by there, so I thought. Save Hyuga Haeyoung? Orochimaru asked. Luhan told Orochimaru about Hyuga Haeyoung's capture yesterday. Yes, maybe there is a chance. Luhan nodded heavily. Originally, Luhan didn't have much confidence, he just wanted to try it out, but now there is Orochimaru, two people. In terms of their abilities, there is a great chance of saving people. After all, this is just the Legion camp of Kurigakure, not the village of Kurigakure. If it is Kurigakure village, don't even think about saving people unless there is an internal response, and in the Kurigakure core camp, there is always a chance, especially for Luhan who has an insight map. He can easily determine that Hyuga Haeyoung is in the Kurigakure base camp. The position of being held in the middle of the country saves a lot of trouble for rescue. Yes, Orochimaru said after a moment of silence. Chapter-301-320 camp at night. In fact, Orochimaru doesn't want to make extra troubles. Except Tsunade and Jiraiya, it is really difficult for him to save others, but Hyuga Haeyoung is special to him. The reason why Hyuga Haeyoung was captured at the beginning was to hold back the boiling water, rain and others, so that Tsunade, Jiraiya, and Orochimaru can escape. In this regard, Hyuga Haeyoung is kind to Orochimaru. Tit for tit. Orochimaru is not afraid of fighting, and can even be said to be very combative, enjoying the feeling of killing. Therefore, he is not afraid of danger. What he has to consider is whether it should be, whether it is worth it, whether it is necessary or not. Save Hyuga Haeyoung. If it is to say to Jiraiya, Jiraiya will probably agree immediately. After all, there is a chance, and to Orochimaru, Orochimaru thinks about it and agrees. Orochimaru, who was only 21 years old at this time, was not a good person, but he was not a bad person either. Then help. Luhan tapped on the map, his heart settled, but he said cautiously, when does Lord Orochimaru think we should go? You said. Orochimaru felt that Luhan already had an idea. At night. Luhan said, let's enter together. As long as I enter, I can sense the position of Lord Haeyoung. Okay, just at night. Orochimaru nodded. Next, the two discussed their plans after entering and sneaking into the Kurigakure camp. In fact, there was nothing to say. There were only two people in total, and they were also acting at the same time. It must be that the plan could not keep up with the changes. The only thing that needs special attention is only 1 point boiling rain. This guy is too strong. Strong pervert. The speed is fast, and if he finds and catches up, it will not be an ordinary trouble. That's a death threat. Lord Orochimaru, since you doubt the ability of boiling rain and large-scale sensor tracking, then I can hide my chakra flow for a short time and block his sense of me. Orochimaru looked directly at Luhan's eyes. The problem is you. This. Luhan hesitated. This. Isn't he a passive induction technique? Naturally not. Orochimaru was very sure, and he played against boiling rain to gain some understanding of boiling rain. That's a technique that can only be sensed by active activation. Luhan squeezed his chin, looked down at the map again, and said ponderingly, as long as we can always quietly sneak in, and take people away quietly, we won't be caught by him. Found. It's difficult, but not impossible. Orochimaru also looked at the map. Ha! Luhan suddenly smiled and said, Bayu may not be in the camp either. If he's not there, then our troubles will be less. Orochimaru didn't say a word, but a cold light flashed in his eyes. Over the past 10 years, boiling rain is the most powerful enemy Orochimaru has personally fought against. It is also what Orochimaru hates the most. I said if we fight boiling you, what chance do Orochimaru think we have? Luhan raised his eyes again and asked. He has never met boiling you, and he has no idea what to do with boiling you. I understand, it was mostly what Tsunade had said before, so he wasn't entirely sure what boiling rain's strength actually reached. If it's just me, judging by your ability to kill Munashi Onigiri, we will definitely lose. Orochimaru's voice became heavy, and his eyes became colder, but even if I die, I will definitely pull him. Quote. Luhan's heart froze. Have to admit that if I take the initiative to go to the Kurigakure camp, the boiling rain will be a nightmare for the two of them. Moreover, there are not only boiling rains in the Kurigakure camp, but also thousands of ninjas guarding the camp, and a large proportion of them are masters. I don't know how many elite Jonin there are. But having said that, what the two of them are talking about now is the most extreme and worst situation. It's unlikely to happen. Then it's decided, Lord Orochimaru. Luhan sat up straight and said solemnly, we will sneak into the Kurigakure camp tonight to look for and rescue Hyuga Heian. Okay. Orochimaru nodded. Time passed, and in the blink of an eye, night fell again. On this night, the moon was particularly round, and the mountains in the southwest of the country of vortexes were shrouded in a hazy color. There was light, but it was dim. The southern mountains, Kurigakure Base Camp. There are many buildings and the scale of the camp is huge. If you look at it from a distance in the night, you can see the shadows of the buildings. There are sentries, and Kurigakure ninjas are monitored in shifts 24 hours a day. Nearly 3 battalions of Kurigakure ninjas are scattered into 40 or 50 teams, patrolling the camp around the clock. The heavily guarded base camp of the Kurigakure expedition. Late at night. Kurigakure Base Camp, which had been bustling for a day, finally fell silent, but the camp was still lit up. East outside the camp, in the forest. Call. Under the cover of the dense branches and leaves, 2 figures appeared on the extremely thick branches and looked at the Kurigakure camp in the distance. There is a dark post 300 meters to the west. Luhan said in a low voice, staring at the base camp of the Kurigakure Corps. He had already opened the Insight map, but only opened the Insight range of 1 kilometer. He expanded the scope of the Insight map little by little, so that Luhan could get some more detailed information. The Insight range is 1 kilometer. The big Yuhi point is in the east gate guardhouse of the camp, 400 meters to the west. He is the captain of the Kurigakure Scout Unit, a level 40 white-silver boss. The Insight range is 3 kilometers, and the big Yuhi point is 2,300 meters away in the southwest. Naturally, it is also in the Kurigakure camp. He is the leader of the Kurigakure Anbu team, a level 40 white-silver boss. According to the judgment rules of the Insight map, there will be a group of Yuhi points on the map, and there will definitely be a big Yuhi point, which is the hostile ninja with the highest status. Therefore, Luhan can use this rule to zoom the insight map while moving, and then he can learn more about the number of masters in the Kurigakure camp. And Luhan also has eyes that can see each other's names, so theoretically, as long as Luhan walks around the camp, he can have a rough idea of the number of strong Kurigakure in the camp. The coverage of the insight map was continuously expanded. When the limit of 10 kilometers was reached, the entire Kurigakure core camp was covered by insight, and Luhan also saw the number 1 person in the camp. Great Yuhi Point. Kurigakure Mizukage Assistant. Level 60 White Silver Boss, Boiling Rain. Chapter-301-320-Infiltrate at Risk. Level 60 White Silver Boss. In fact, Luhan had already speculated about Boyu's strength rating. Danzo believed that he was not as strong as Boyu, and Danzo was a level 60 bronze boss. Orochimaru, who had reached level 60, also believed that he would be dead or alive in the fight against Boyu. Neither does Shang Luhan. Luhan calculated at the time that Boiling Rain's strength should be between level 60 bronze and level 60 white silver, and it couldn't be a gold boss. Tsunade, Hyuga Heian, etc., they can't be Boiling Rain's opponents, let alone escape. In fact, Luhan has always expected that Boiling Rain is only a level 60 bronze boss, the same level as Danzo, and the same level is not necessarily the same strength. Ninja's rating is comprehensive ability, not pure fighting ability, so Boiling Rain can be more powerful. Unexpectedly, Boiling Rain turned out to be a level 60 white silver boss. If he encounters an enemy of this level, Luhan has no confidence that he can win. Maybe, you can't escape. Boiling Yu is in the camp, I feel him. Luhan said in a very low voice, tilting his head to look at Orochimaru beside him. Luhan has disguised his ability to see the map as a kind of induction technique. Where's Hyuga? Orochimaru asked in a low voice. It's also inside. Luhan continued, it's less than 300 meters away from the location of Boiling Yu. It may be a prison cell. On the insight map, in addition to Boiling Rain represented by the big Yuhi point, there is also a blue dot, and a large group of orange dots. There are hundreds of orange dots, and they gather together, not far from each other. It can be speculated that the orange dots are other prisoners held in the Kurigakure camp, Konoha, Uzushiogakure, Kumogakure, Sunagakure. The prisoners should all come from these 4 ninja villages, and according to the rules of the insight map, only those Luhan wanted to save, will be judged as teammate blue, so even if other Konoha ninjas are imprisoned in the camp, they will not be judged as teammates. How strong is your sensing ability? Orochimaru said silently. Will it be confusing because there are too many targets? No, although the sensing distance is not far, it is definitely not wrong. Luhan affirmed. Save people, Orochimaru decided. Okay, Luhan nodded, then ejected, follow me. Orochimaru said to save people, then save. Having reached this point, there is no reason to back down. After all, as long as you are careful, you may be able to bring Hyuga Heian out of the Kurigakure camp without a sound. After an hour. Kurigakure base camp under the moonlight, behind a tower more than 10 meters high, in a dimly lit alley. The young Kurigakure Chunin knelt down slowly, opened his mouth to make a sound, but couldn't. His pale, bloodless, black-hearted hands passed from behind Kurigakure Chunin and grabbed his neck. Slammed hard. Click. Kurigakure Chunin's neck was shattered and his head tilted. The third one, their bodies will be found sooner or later, we have to hurry. Luhan flashed out of the dark corner and said quickly in a low voice. The one who just killed was the Kurigakure whistle. The Kurigakure ninja hiding in the spying camp. The dark whistle is the most difficult to deal with. Many times, they can't avoid their sight and can only kill them. If it wasn't for Luhan's insight into the map, if the two entered the Kurigakure camp, they might have been discovered within 100 meters. Wait for me, Orochimaru said in a low voice, jumped up with the body in his hand, and stepped on the outer wall of the tower on the side to quickly ascend. After a while, Orochimaru ran down again, and he had already hidden the body. This is of limited use because even Kurigakure can't find the body. They will also find that the dark whistle is missing, and they will definitely look for it at that time. A matter of time. It is necessary to get people out of the Kurigakure camp before Kurigakure finds that the dark sentry is missing. The farther the better, the better. At the entrance of the alley, Luhan and Orochimaru were clinging to the wall, looking out. Outside the hutong is a side street, opposite the street is a grove, deep in the grove. It is a single-family building, a 3-story tower, that tower is a prison cell, and all around the cell are trees. Cells exist in isolation. According to the Insight map, there are as many as hundreds of dark posts in the woods around the cell. The guards are extremely tight. There are also some traps. A large number of dark posts are arranged near the cell, and the surrounding area is just woods. The cell exists in isolation, and it is not built underground. It seems to be intentional to attract people to rob the prison. There are dark whistles everywhere in the woods. Luhan whispered. We can disguise as Kurigakure ninjas, Orochimaru suggested, and he said it simply, but to do so requires a lot of preparation, timing, and waiting for the Kurigakure patrol to pass by. No, I have a way to get there. Luhan glanced at Orochimaru. It's hard to bring people out. If you can't bring people out, it's meaningless. Luhan didn't expect that Kurigakure would send so many people to guard the prisoners of war. Some trouble. Meanwhile, in another part of Kurigakure's base camp, a small room with only one candlestick was dimly lit. Sir, if we can't use Hyuga Haeyoung in exchange for Lord Chuntao, Lord Mizukage, I'm afraid. It's hard to explain. Mundogen stood in front of the wooden collapse, carefully watching the boiling rain. Do you want to reconsider? Not long after Mundogen returned to the camp, he came over to have a secret talk with Feiyu as soon as he came back. The two talked a lot about the recent southwest mountain range, and Feiyu had already told Mundogen that he planned to publicly execute Hyuga Haeyoung. In revenge for what Cold Light did in the southwest mountains. Doing so is a trick. It is false to vent his anger. And it is true that he wants to provoke the relationship between the Hyuga family and Sarutobi Hiruzen. But Mundogen knew that Ghost Lantern Grand Elder Ghost Lantern Chuntao was locked up in Uzushiogakure village, and if he didn't try to get it back. You don't need to say more, I have made up my mind. Boyu said decisively. After a pause, he said again, there is something I should tell you now. Uzumaki Jinghai has secretly joined me in Kurigakure. Lord Chuntao. He'll fix it. What? Mundogen exclaimed in shock. Chapter-301-320. Uzumaki shocked the sea. How could he be? Mundogen couldn't understand. The Uzumaki family and Konoha had a very deep relationship. Since the establishment of Konoha, the Uzushiogakure village headed by the Uzumaki family established diplomatic relations with Konoha and became Konoha most loyal ally. As for the villages of Uzushiogakure and Kurigakure, that is a feud. From the Sengoku era to the present, the country of Vortex and the Kingdom of Water have been in constant conflict for decades. The main reason is the conflict between the Kingdom of Vortex and the Kingdom of Water. That sea area is the most abundant sea area in the entire ninja world. In addition to the biological resources of fish and seafood, there are also a lot of mineral resources under the sea. Simply put, it's a battle of interests. The reason why Kurigakure launched the war against the country of Vortex is also because of the sea. The country of Vortex has no important resources in its native land, and as long as Kurigakure occupies the country of Vortex, he can monopolize the most important marine resources in the entire ninja world, without having to fight with Uzushiogakure. The village was repeatedly contested. Mundogen couldn't figure it out. Although he was a Kurigakure ninja, he still didn't understand Uzumaki's decision. Since Uzumaki Jinghai betrayed the Cold Light information, his relationship with Sarutobi Hiruzen has plummeted. Sarutobi Hiruzen is the kind of person who hates betrayal the most, and Uzumaki Jinghai just happened to make his big taboo. Boiling Yu explained in a slow voice. According to our intelligence analysis in the past few months, the actual controller of Uzushiogakure village is already the Konoha, not the Uzumaki clan. In terms of the right to speak, Sarutobi Hiruzen can already decide everything. Whether Uzumaki Jinghai agrees or not. The reason for this is, it's because Sarutobi Hiruzen is already wary of Uzumaki Jinghai. That's why he is so assertive. They were allies and fought together, but Konoha was the master. Uzumaki Jinghai was originally a dog of Konoha, but he didn't want to admit it, and in this war, he recognized the truth. He thought he was a village lord of a nation, but in fact, Konoha is. Konoha refused to send more troops to the country of Vortex, but controlled the village of Uzushiogakure. On the battlefield, the death rate of the Uzushiogakure ninja troops was much higher than that of the Konoha ninja troops. If things go on like this, it won't take too long, just another year. Even if Konoha and Uzushiogakure win the war together and we Kurigakure withdraw from the country of Vortex, then there will be few people left in the Uzumaki clan. Then Uzumaki Jinghai can no longer be the master of the country of Vortex, and Konoha will officially take his place. Quote, I have already met Uzumaki Jinghai secretly and discussed it in detail. Boyu said with a mocking smile. He refuses to admit defeat and wants to maintain the previous glory of the Uzumaki family. And he also knows our Kurigakure's intentions. Know what we want. I promised him that as long as he agrees to join our village of Kurigakure and help our village to defeat the Konoha army in the country of Vortex, our Kurigakure will recognize his status in the country of Vortex, and he is still the lord of the village of Uzushiogakure. I Kurigakure it will provide him with security. The country of Vortex will still exist in name, but in fact it is included in the territory of our country of water. One country and two villages. Their Uzushiogakure village is a vassal of our Kurigakure village. Uzumaki is scared of the sea. He is afraid that the Uzumaki family will disappear into the long river of history. Boiling Yu smiled, his face even more mocking. It turned out to be like this. Mundogen sighed, feeling even more awe of Boiling Yu in his heart. Boiling Yu said it was simple, but how could this kind of thing be made clear in a few words? Uzumaki Jinghai's only son was killed by Kurigakure, but Boiling Yu was able to convince him to let him go to Kurigakure. This is almost impossible. Possible things were made by boiling rain. Mundogen knew that once the Uzumaki family took refuge, it would mean that they gave up their marine interests. At that time, I didn't even have the money, but I really depended on others. Want to come to Uzumaki, there is no way to be forced. War. For Konoha village, which ranks first in strength among the 5 major ninja villages, can afford to fight, and can afford it. I can't afford it, and I don't have the ability to break the net. And speaking of it, Uzumaki Jinghai would betray Konoha, which is also related to Sarutobi Hiruzen's distrust of him. It is precisely because Sarutobi Hiruzen does not trust Uzumaki Jinghai, who will be the master of the country of Vortex in the future. Well, you can arrange it right away. You don't need to inform Konoha, just send someone to spread the news. Boiling Yu ordered repeatedly, we will publicly execute Hyuga Haeyoung. The time is set in a month. Yes. Mundogen took the order and lowered his head lower. Under the moonlight, Kurigakure base camp, at the entrance of the dark alley. If it's difficult for you to bring people out, Orochimaru, who had been thinking for a long time, finally said, then. I'll attract attention. Create chaos. You take the opportunity. No. Luhan hurriedly shook his head. If you expose it, it's over, Boiling Yu. Not necessarily. I can't beat him, but there is always a chance to run away, and encountering boiling rain, that is the most extreme situation. This way, I'll check the situation first. Even if I can't bring people out, I can come out first. We'll discuss it later. Okay, you be careful. Luhan took one last look at Orochimaru, then looked towards the woods across the street outside the alley, raised his hands and quickly hand seal. Secret art, hidden art. Luhan clapped one hand on the wall to take advantage of his strength, and the whole person rushed out like the wind. In the dark state, he melted into the darkness. Although there was still moonlight on the street, he was so fast that he reached the ultimate, no sound and no breath. And no wind is produced, and no one can see him. Flying over the street in an instant, Lu Han rushed into the woods, patted the tree again, and his movement speed increased again. His feet didn't touch the ground, as if he was really flying. It was dark in the woods. Even if he didn't move, the Kurigakure whistle in the woods couldn't see him, not to mention that he was moving at super high speed. He clapped his hands on the trees several times in a row. On his body, Lu Han glided in the woods, avoiding obstacles back and forth. In just a few seconds, he traversed the 100-meter-wide woods and landed in the dark corner outside the tower. According to the Insight map, Hyuga Haeyong is locked in the middlemost cell in the tower, which is the most difficult cell to enter. But for Lu Han, it wasn't a big problem. Lu Han leaned against the wall, took a deep breath, and flicked his wrist. Horizon was in hand. Chapter-301-320 quietly. Opening the Insight map again, Lu Han took a quick glance. The location of boiling rain has not changed, and the other dense Yuhi spots have not been greatly mobilized, which means that they have not found any abnormalities. And within the range of the cells on the Insight map, there are not many Yuhi points, just over 30, not even the number of prisoners. This is normal. What Kurigakure needs to guard against is someone coming in from outside, and it is not that the captive can escape by himself. The blue dot represented by Hyuga Haeyong is guarded alone, and near his location, there are 2 Yuhi dots, that is, someone guards him alone. Lu Han took a look at the general situation of the entire Kurigakure camp, and then narrowed the Insight map to a minimum range of 1 kilometer and kept it open. Let's go. With a low voice, Lu Han threw out Horizon Kunai. He strictly controlled the speed of Horizon Kunai's throwing, making sure that Kunai's fire rate was very fast without making too much noise. Horizon Kunai shot in an arc, flew 2 or 3 meters diagonally upward along the wall, and shot into the upper window. Lu Han disappeared in place. The empty cell by the window, Lu Han appeared out of thin air, turned over and grabbed Horizon Kunai, who had not yet nailed it to the wall, rolled out to the ground, and stopped silently in the corner of the wall. This is a small single cell, very dark. The only light source is the moonlight outside the window. Although it has not been used yet, there are curse marks everywhere in the cell. The defensive power of the surrounding walls, and can prevent ninjas from entering and exiting at will by using general telekinesis. In other words, with the basic instant body technique, it is impossible to enter the cell, and it is impossible to get out. But Lu Han can go in and out at will, and he can go wherever Kuwu can go. The entire tower will not be sealed, right? Kurigakure is not good at sealing. If it is, it must be that guy Boyu. That pervert, Lu Han muttered, dodging to the door of the cell. The cell door is a fully enclosed metal door with only one elongated opening above it for observation. Lu Han stood at the door, holding Horizon Kunai and observing the Insight map. After a while, he suddenly waved his hand and threw Horizon Kunai out through the opening on the door. The dim corridor, 2 Kurigakure ninjas who were patrolling had just turned into a fork in the road, and a kunai flew out from the opening above the cell door on the right in the middle of the corridor, and Lu Han in a black robe mask appeared. 10 minutes later. The central area of the first floor of the prison tower, at the end of the dark corridor, in front of a metal door, 2 Kurigakure Jonin stood straight in front of the door like soldiers, with their hands on the handle of the knife, and they were on high alert. They are all senior ninjas from the Kurigakure Scout Unit, strong and experienced, but they dare not take it lightly because they know who is being held in the cell. Born in the famous Hyuga clan in Konoha, the current branch head of the Hyuga clan. Even the leader of the scout troop dare not say that he will win. Hyuga Haeyong. It is a terrifying existence that can withstand the strongest attack of Lord Boiling Rain. If it is in Kurigakure village, no matter how powerful the prisoner is, there is no need for Jonin to keep the door at all times. After all, this is not Kurigakure village, but a temporary camp. The prison is also temporarily established. There will always be some problems. There will be 2 Kurigakure Jonin holding hands at all times. In front of the passage, at the corner, Luhan was clinging to the wall, not daring to probe. It's really troublesome, there's only one way. Luhan took a second look at the insight map, took a deep breath, and was about to die hand seal. Secret art, hidden art. Luhan entered a dark state, then jumped directly to the ceiling of the 4-meter-high corridor, sucked his hands on it. Luhan was like a gecko, hung on it, and then moved his hands and feet together, quickly, crawling. In the hidden state, even if it is Jonin, without pupil skills, it is difficult to see Luhan in the dark, and Luhan is as light as a feather, crawling very fast. This is how Luhan crawled directly into the cell leading to the center of the passage, and all the way to the depths, all the way to the wall. The 2 Jonins naturally didn't see him. If they looked up at the ceiling, they might have noticed something unusual, but they couldn't look up all the time. Luhan had already climbed above the heads of the 2 of them, turned over, sucked his back on the ceiling, and looked at the 2 Jonins below who were holding hands in front of the door. If you kill them here. Luhan is a little embarrassed. Killing these 2 people is easy for him. He can kill them quietly, but the problem is that even if the body is hidden, the person disappears. It won't be long before the patrolling ninjas in the tower will find out. But Luhan couldn't keep trying to find a solution here. If the time dragged on for too long, if it didn't work out, Orochimaru outside would cause trouble. Trouble, trouble, Luhan muttered to himself, withdrew the chakra on his back, and floated down. No sound, no breath, no wind. Luhan, like a feather, slowly approached the 2 of them below. At this point, Luhan had 2 choices, either kill them with a knife, or use demonic illusion. But the latter is very likely to fail. After all, there are 2 people, not 1. Luhan floated down. Just as he passed the opening on the big metal door, Luhan had a flash of light, and instantly shot Hiraishin out and stuffed it along the opening on the door. Immediately, Luhan, who was about to meet 2 Kurigakure Jonin, disappeared above their heads. From beginning to end, everything was silent. 2 Kurigakure Jonin, still engrossed, held the handle in front of the cell door. The large cell was empty, without any furnishings. There are small candlesticks hanging above the corners of the surrounding walls and the walls. The candles are burning, and the cell is dimly colored. Was a futon in the middle of the cell. Hyuga Haeyoung, wearing a white plain robe, sat cross-legged on the futon. There were curse marks everywhere on his arms, neck, and face. He closed his eyes tightly and remained silent. Hiraishin Kunai slipped into the cell along the opening of the door. The black-robed masked figure appeared out of thin air, grabbing the kunai who almost fell to the ground with one hand. Hyuga Haeyoung suddenly opened his eyes. Luhan made a silent gesture to Hyuga Haeyoung. Chapter-301-320 and Proof. Hyuga Haeyoung has been sealed with all his abilities. At this time, he can even be said to be an ordinary person, but he still feels that someone is coming. He couldn't sense it, but as a powerful ninja, his hearing was still there. He didn't feel Luhan's appearance, but it was the subtle wind sound produced by Hiraishin's kunai's whereabouts, which he heard. It's incredible, but he's Hyuga Haeyoung. Looking at the mysterious figure wearing a black robe and a mask that suddenly appeared in the cell, Hyuga Haeyoung's face did not show the slightest joy, instead he frowned. Luhan made a silent gesture to Hyuga Haeyoung. Seeing that Hyuga Haeyoung didn't move, he felt relieved and slowly put down his hand. Who are you? Hyuga Haeyoung asked loudly, his face full of impatience. Fuck, Luhan scolded inwardly, dodging to the corner. The opening on the metal door is for observation. The Kurigakure ninja outside can see the situation in the cell through the observation port, and the corner of the wall where Luhan is hiding is in a row with the metal door, which is just the blind spot for outside observation. Seeing Luhan's demeanor, Hyuga Haeyoung grinned with a mocking smile, and said, "Stop pretending. You should know that the cells here are insulated from sound and breath. This trick is enough for you to play once, you don't have to do it again. Go back and tell Boiling You that he will never get any information from me." Humph. Hyuga Haeyang snorted coldly and closed his eyes. This. Lu Han was stunned for a moment, showing a thoughtful look. Listening to Hyuga Haeyang's meaning, Kurigakure had played a trick of pretending to save people and deceived Hyuga Haeyang to obtain information, but was discovered by Hyuga Haeyang. I'm here to save you. This was Lu Han's opening remarks. According to what Hyuga Haeyang said, the cell is isolated from sound and breath, so Lu Han can naturally speak. This kind of cell isolates the breath and voice of the detainee, mainly to prevent that when someone comes to rob the prison, the detainee will let the robber directly determine the location by yelling. But now, isolating sound and breath has provided convenience for Lu Han. You don't believe me, Lu Han said hoarsely. Hyuga Haeyang did not speak. He was too lazy to pay attention, and still closed his eyes. Hyuga Haeyang is too aware of Boiling Rain's methods. Boiling Rain will not leave any flaws for people to be successfully robbed. It is even more impossible to sneak in here quietly. Nobody can do it. Even if Hokage Sarutobi Hiruzen came in person, it would have to be violent all the way here, rather than sneaking in here quietly. And Anbu Captain White Fang. His stealth ability is very strong, in this respect, even more than Sarutobi Hiruzen, but it is difficult to sneak into such a defensive prison. Me, Anbu, cold light, Lu Han said again. Humph. Hyuga Haeyang snorted, opened his eyes and glanced at Lu Han, teasing, Hengguang. You are Hengguang. Ha, I once heard Lord Hokage say that Hengguang killed you, Captain Kurigakure Anbu. Konoha Anbu, except for you White Fang and Han Guang, who else do you know? Can you pretend to be someone else? Quote. I don't have time to chat with you. Lu Han's voice sank, he couldn't wait, he raised his hand, and Lu Han took off the mask on his face, revealing his delicate face. Young brat. Hyuga raised his eyebrows. You don't know me. Why should I know you? Okay. Lu Han sighed, raised his hand and put on the mask again. Exhausted. Lu Han originally hoped that Hyuga Haeyang knew Han, so that he could prove that he was a Konoha ninja, but obviously, Hyuga Haeyang didn't know him. Hyuga Haeyang must have heard of the name of Han, but not necessarily seen it with his own eyes. In fact, Hyuga Haeyang has seen Han, but when Han was 8 years old, Han was still studying at the ninja school and was often bullied by Hyuga Luoning. Hyuga Haeyang also went to the ninja school. And the cold in the past is very different from the cold now. I know your daughter, Hyuga Luoning, right? Lu Han spoke again. Humph. It's not a secret who my daughter is. Lu Han wanted to say something, but stopped again. In fact, Lu Han can prove that he is a Konoha ninja by talking about Hyuga Luoning, but it will be very strange. Knowing Hyuga Luoning, and having the ability save Hyuga Haeyang. It sounds weird, it seems to be talking about two people, maybe it will arouse Hyuga Haeyang's greater suspicion, and that explanation is very troublesome and a waste of time. Do you know this? Lu Han raised his hand again and gestured to Hyuga Haeyang with the kunai in his hand. Kunai. Hyuga Haeyang glanced coldly at Lu Han. I mean, the above technique. Lu Han's voice was a little heavier. You participated in the last ninja war. You should have been in your 20s at that time. You should have seen it before. Huh. Hyuga Haeyang frowned deeper and looked intently. Although his ability has been sealed, Byakugan is born, even if he doesn't need chakra, his pure vision is still excellent. See clearly. Hiraishin. Hyuga Haeyang exclaimed, his whole body shaking violently. In fact, the Hiraishin technique is not fixed. The Hiraishin technique of the second-generation Hokage Senju Tobarama in the original book is different from the Hiraishin technique of the fourth-generation Hokage Namikaze Minato. The former is a pattern, and the latter is a text, however. Lu Han just barely managed to master Hiraishin. He learned the Hiraishin technique of the second-generation Hokage Senju Tobarama, and he has not yet been able to create his own technique, so his Hiraishin technique is the same as that used by Senju Tobarama. A few months ago, I returned to Konoha from the Land of Water. Lord Hokage read my merits and promoted me to be the deputy captain of Anbu, and this is how I practice the art of Hiraishin. At present, I am also a reluctant master Hiraishin, and this is how I can sneak into it. One of the reasons for this. Luhan clenched Kuwu and lowered his arm, and now, I'm the vice captain of Anbu. That said, Luhan threw Hiraishin kunai with a shake of his hand. Call. Kuwu-ji shot at Hyuga Haeyoung. When he was less than 1 meter away from Hyuga Haeyoung, Luhan disappeared into the corner and appeared out of thin air at a position 1 meter away from Kuwu. Falling in front of Hyuga Haeyoung, he asked hoarsely, "Do you believe me?" Believe. Hyuga Haeyoung nodded without hesitation, because he didn't believe that the practice of Hiraishin's art would be rumored. Only Konoha ninjas can master Hiraishin. He has to be a genius like a monster. Chapter-301-320 Project. Luhan is only 13 years old, very young, even very young, but Hyuga Haeyoung did not doubt Luhan because of Luhan's height is more than 1.7 meters. The only young man is his face, his temperament, his demeanor, and his tone of voice. Not like a half-old kid. Hyuga Haeyoung has reason to suspect that Hangwang looks young, but it is possible that he is actually in his 20s and 30s. So he didn't think much about it. With Hiraishin, it is enough to prove Hangwang's identity. In Konoha, the only one who knows the way of Hiraishin practice is Hokage Sarutobi Hiruzen. Without his permission, no one can learn Hiraishin. Captain Cold Light. Hyuga Haeyoung stood up, a little excited. How are you going to take me out? I haven't thought about it yet. Luhan said bluntly. I can sneak in here, and I can go out, but it is difficult to take you out. You have been sealed and you have no strength, which makes it even more difficult for me to take you out. Hyuga Haeyoung's heart sank, and after a brief pause, he said, I have a solution. Oh, what can I do? Luhan asked in surprise. Dig a tunnel. Hyuga Haeyoung pointed to his feet. Tunnel. Luhan said strangely, this method is really old enough. When I was first caught here, I wasn't detained here, because the prison was not built yet. I was brought here almost 20 days ago. Hyuga Haeyoung said, I was detained. For so long, I have naturally thought about how to escape, and my conclusion is that the only possibility is to dig a tunnel. Under our feet, there is a rock layer 2 to 3 meters thick, and under the rock layer is a clay layer. That is to say, as long as the rock layer is penetrated, we can dig the clay smoothly like a groundhog. Open up a tunnel to escape. If my strength was not sealed, it would be easy to break through rocks and dig up clay, and now I am sealed, but I think, with the strength of Captain Hangwang, I should be able to easily do what I said. Hyuga Haeyoung didn't know how strong the cold light was, but it wasn't weak. That's one way. Luhan pondered deeply. You don't need to worry about the sound and breath, it won't come out from here. The only thing to worry about is the temperature and vibration. If you use Kaden fire-style ninjutsu to melt rocks, it needs extremely high temperature, and will be guarded by Kurigakure Jonin outside. It's felt, and the shock from the shock is also felt outside. Well, Luhan nodded, thinking about walking into Hyuga Haeyoung for 2 steps, and lowered his voice subconsciously, we're like this. 5 minutes later. Boom, 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 boom. The sound of the crash came again and again, and someone was slamming the cell door. The 2 Kurigakure Jonin with the handle outside the cell door turned around at the same time and saw a pair of eyes through the long opening on the metal door. In this dim environment, a pair of eyes grew on the door, with a haunted sense of sight, but Hyuga Haeyoung in the cell stood in front of the door, put his face in front of the opening, and stared outside with wide eyes the 2 Jonin. What is he doing? Are you hungry? But the neuropathy in the middle of the night. Leave him alone. 2 Jonins turned to look, whispered a few words, and turned around at the same time. They will not pay attention to any request from Hyuga Haeyoung, because if Hyuga Haeyoung has any request, they have to inform Boiling Rain, and this cell door, in the entire camp, except Boiling Rain, only a few people from Kurigakure Anbu can open it. The 2 Kurigakure Jonin guarding outside the door were unable to open the door. Naturally, it is impossible for them to notify Boyu because Hyuga Haeyoung went on a nerve. Otherwise, Hyuga Haeyoung can control Boyu's actions casually, and Boyu doesn't have to do anything else. These two Kurigakure Jonin is to guard this door, the others. Even if Hyuga Haeyoung dies in the cell, it is not their responsibility. Hyuga Haeyoung stood at the door, blocking the long opening above, and did not smash the door. He just came to block it and give him a shot, so. Even if the two Kurigakure Jonin felt something and looked back into the cell, they could see Hyuga Haeyoung's eyes, and they would still feel that the movement was Hyuga Haeyoung's eyes. Yang made it. Inside the cell, the center of the ground. Luhan squatted down, the wind rolled up in his hands, and the rapidly spinning Rasengan quickly took shape. Luhan controlled the rotation speed of Rasengan to the level of LV6, so that although wind would be generated, it would not blow out the candles in the cell. Slowly pressing Rasengan to the ground, Luhan carefully controlled the force of his arm's downward pressure. In just a few breaths, the ground was drilled by Rasengan a half-meter deep pit. Mainly because the speed of Rasengan's rotation is too fast. A knife slid across a piece of paper quickly, and there will be no sound. Fast enough and the sound will be low. If Luhan increases the speed of Rasengan to ultimate and grinds the penultimate weapon into powder, it won't make much noise. Luhan has now mastered the highest level 55-9 ultimate Rasengan. His control over Rasengan is beyond what pervert can describe. Unless it is a violent collision, the Rasengan in his hand will never burst due to the imbalance of power. It took Luhan a few minutes to get through the rock layer more than 2 meters thick, mainly because he didn't get through it in a straight line. In a straight line, the diameter of the Rasengan is small, and the hole punched out is too small. A hole with a large enough diameter. After punching through the rock layer, things become simple. Punching holes in the clay, there will be no vibration, because the clay is soft. Luhan instantly increased the speed of Rasengan to ultimate. The huge twisting force was like a huge drill bit. Luhan went deep into the clay, constantly breaking the clay, and advancing rapidly. 10 minutes later. Under the dim moonlight, at the entrance of the dark alley. Orochimaru, who had been waiting, suddenly frowned, looked down at the ground, and felt a slight vibration. Chapter 0318-follow me, get out. This is. Orochimaru frowned for a moment, looked down with high alertness, his body was suddenly illusory, and with a dodge, he disappeared at the entrance of the alley. The ground shook slightly for a while. Sudden. Whoa. The ground at the entrance of the alley collapsed against the wall, and a deep pit with a diameter of less than 1 meter collapsed. A muddy figure suddenly emerged from it. It was Luhan. Orochimaru appeared beside Luhan, looking up and down at Luhan, looking a little dumbfounded. What's the situation? Wait for me. Luhan didn't have time to say more, and after explaining, he turned over and jumped back to the hole. Underground tunnel. It is very narrow, and it does not look very solid, as if it will collapse at any time, because it is a clay structure. Although Rasengan expands the channel in the clay, the squeezing force to the surrounding has compacted the clay, but the clay is clay after all. Some flimsy. Luhan's speed was extremely fast, and his figure kept flickering in the passage. In just a few breaths, he passed through the passage that was no more than 200 meters long, ran up the slope, and jumped up. Inside the cell in the center of the prison tower. Hyuga Haeyoung was still standing in front of the metal door, staring outside, motionless. Luhan jumped out of the hole in the center of the cell's floor, turned over and landed lightly, calling, "Go." Hyuga Haeyoung quickly turned around and ran quickly to the entrance of the cave. Luhan grabbed Hyuga Haeyoung's shoulder, jumped into the cave, entered the passage, and ran wildly with Hyuga Haeyoung. Dark alley. Orochimaru stood by the entrance of the cave and was on high alert. Suddenly, he lowered his head again and looked towards the entrance of the cave. He felt a slight sound again, coming from the entrance of the cave, the sound of running wind. The sound got closer and closer, but it gradually became smaller. It was the running person who slowed down. Call. As soon as the figure came out of the hole with another figure, the two retreated at the same time and leaned against the wall. Orochimaru swept his gaze and said in a low voice, "Lord Haeyoung." Hyuga Haeyoung was trying to cover the escape of the Tsunade 3, and he was finally captured in the deadly battle. At this age, the cold and arrogant Orochimaru was very fond of Hyuga Haeyoung. Respect. Orochimaru. You. Hyuga Haeyoung was taken aback. He didn't expect Orochimaru to be here too. The combination of Orochimaru and Anbu's vice captain, Han Guang, is a bit strange. Wait for me here, Lu Han said in a low voice quickly, and he disappeared in a flash. After half a minute, Lu Han returned to the entrance of the alley, and carried back a large blue-gray stone with a diameter of more than 1 meter. The Kurigakure camp is still under construction, so there are so many large stones used to build the towers that you don't have to travel far to find them. Lu Han pressed the big rock at the entrance of the cave, just to completely block it. Follow me, withdraw. Lu Han waved his hand. Orochimaru brought Hyuga Haeyoung, whose strength was sealed, and Lu Han led the way. They saw the map and drove to Ultimate. After half an hour, the three successfully escaped from the Kurigakure base camp and entered the forest south of the camp. Of Lu Han and Orochimaru has skyrocketed. Speed away from the Kurigakure camp. It worked. Silently sneaked into the Kurigakure camp and took away Hyuga and Haeyoung without a sound. From the beginning to the end, Lu Han and Orochimaru were not discovered by Kurigakure, but they also buried hidden dangers, because in the process of sneaking into the Kurigakure camp, they killed him. 3 Dark Whistle. In fact, Lu Han could put the corpse in his space backpack, but that was of no use. With or without the corpse, sooner or later, Kurigakure would find out that Dark Sentinel was missing. Just a matter of time. Lu Han is not sure when Kurigakure will find the problem. It may be immediately, or it may be a few hours later, but in any case, he and Orochimaru have to take Hyuga Haeyoung as far away from the Kurigakure base camp as possible. The farther away, the safer. Of the night, the quiet base camp of the Kurigakure Corps, where the Kurigakure scout troops were stationed. Military headquarters, in the bedroom on the 2nd floor. Mundogen had just sent out ninjas to spread the news about the public execution of Hyuga Haeyoung, and then he returned to his room and was about to fall asleep. Dong dong. Report your lord. There was a sudden knock on the door, and a respectful voice came from outside, emergency. Mundogen, who had just lay down, sat up and frowned in response. Speak. It's time for the changing of the guard, and there are 3 secret guards who have not changed the guard. The voice outside the door quickly said, the subordinates have just sent people to search, and their bodies were found near the secret guards they were responsible for. In the case of fighting back, he was assassinated to death. Mundogen's face changed greatly and he stood up suddenly. Not long after. In the lobby of the scout unit's military headquarters, the lights are bright. 3 Kurigakure scout ninjas were placed side by side on the ground. The 3 of them died in the same way. They all had their necks crushed. This assassination method is simple and rude. It is faster and more effective to not directly use the knife, but there is an advantage that the deceased will not bleed, and there will be no bloody smell, so the corpse is easier to hide. Around the 3 corpses, 6 or 7 captains of the Kurigakure scout force, who had already led Captain Mundo, were all safe. Mundogen checked the 3 corpses with a gloomy face, but he didn't get any valuable clues. He got up again, took out the map of the Kurigakure base camp from his arms, and said to the bald middle-aged ninja beside him, "Point to me, they the dark post that should be stationed." Here, and here. The bald ninja pointed 3 times on the map. Mundogen frowned, pressed his finger on the map, drew a line, and then his face changed dramatically. The line he drew just barely connected the 3 dark sentries, and this line pointed directly to the tower prison. A few minutes later, in the dark corridor connecting the central cell on the 1st floor of the tower cell, Mundogen hurriedly brought several people to the door, and waved his hands and shouted, "Get out of the way." The 2 Kurigakure Jonin who were guarding the door didn't know what was going on, but they both quickly stepped aside. Mundogen was followed by a tall and thin ninja wearing a black robe and a mask. Looking at the dress, it was a high-level ninja of Kurigakure Anbu. After the two Jonins stepped aside, the Kurigakure Anbu ninja quickly hand-sealed, lifted the seal on the door, and took out the key. The door opened. The cell was empty. Chapter 0319 _ spell tracking. In the dim and small room, Boiling Rain was sitting cross-legged on the futon, not moving, but he had fallen asleep for a long time. Few ninjas can use meditation instead of rest, but Boiling Rain can. He has this ability in seclusion and practice all year round. During meditation, the chakra in his body will continue to run autonomously according to a specific route. Call. Chakra fluctuations suddenly rolled up outside the door. Boiling Yu opened his eyes immediately. Sir, Hyuga Haeyong has been rescued. Mundogen's voice sounded outside the door. Boom tilde. The door of the room was slammed open by a huge force in an instant, the wind was blowing violently, and the cold breath surrounded Mundogen, and a sense of terror was immediately pressed on his heart. The rain had appeared before Mundogen like a ghost. You say, what? Boiling Yu's expression became grim, and his voice became more and more low. Hyuga Haeyong was rescued. Mundogen lowered his head and said quickly, half an hour ago, a subordinate got a report that there was a dark whistle. The subordinate went to the cell to check. They were dug out. The tunnel is connected to. Damn. Boiling Yu roared frantically. The chakra fluctuations on his body became more and more violent, clenched his fists tightly, and slammed his hand back on the door unintentionally. Boom tilde. The terrifying power swept across, and directly shredded the wall on the first floor of the tower along the door, and the load-bearing stone Jinchuriki column also cracked and then shattered. The entire tower began to collapse, the roar shook the sky, and the smoke filled the air. Boiling Rain and Mundogen disappeared at the same time, and reappeared in the open space not far away. The tower collapsed completely, and the entire camp fell into a commotion. A large number of Kurigakure ninjas who had rested jumped to the roof to check the situation. Boiling Yu didn't even take a look at the unintentional destruction of the tower. The tower can be rebuilt if it collapsed. It is difficult to say whether a prisoner of the level of Hyuga Haeyong was rescued or not. Sir, do you want to send someone to bring back the ninjas who were sent out to spread the news earlier? Maybe it's still too late. Mundogen said respectfully and quickly, with a little more caution in his tone. It was Boy Yujang who told Mundogen to send people when to spread the news about the public execution of Hyuga Haeyong. And now, Hyuga Haeyong has disappeared and cannot be executed publicly, so naturally he can't spread the news, otherwise, Kurigakure will be the laughingstock of the ninja world. No need for now. Boiling Yu stared at his bloodshot eyes with a gloomy voice, made a gesture to Mundogen, then sat cross-legged on the sandy ground, put his hands together, and started hand seal. A chain-like spell. Yin climbed out of Boiling Rain's sleeves and quickly covered his hands. South of the Kurigakure camp, there are mountains and forests. It was the midsummer season. In this month, in the country of the vortex in the south, the days were long and the nights were short. At 3 o'clock in the middle of the night, the sky was already bright, but the forest was still extremely dark. Quick, there's a patrol over there, come this way and follow me. In the forest, Lu Han led the way, Orochimaru led Hyuga and Haeyong, and the three of them were moving at high speed. Lu Han's idea was to run as far as possible before dawn, find a place to hide after dawn, and then study the matter of escaping from the southwest mountains. It is easier to escape at night, but in the daytime, not to mention other things, just flying ninja will cause a lot of trouble to Lu Han and the others. This is still very close to the Kurigakure camp. Once Kurigakure finds that Hyuga Haeyong is gone, I am afraid that it will mobilize all available power to search. To hide. It's getting better and better at hiding. Ah, damn, ah. Hyuga Haeyong suddenly screamed, and he subconsciously flung his arms and struggled by Orochimaru. The whole person fell out, and he rose up with chakra fluctuations, but it was not him his own chakra as the dense seal spell on his body. Those sealing spells were linked together, as if they were suddenly alive, flowing, like a snake in Hyuga Haeyoung. The sudden pain made Hyuga Haeyoung scream, but then he took control of the Lord, curled up on the ground, clenched his fists, and his whole body was shaking violently. How? Someone activated the spell. Luhan and Orochimaru jumped to Hyuga Haeyoung at the same time. Lu Hanxiang reached out and helped Hyuga Haeyoung up, but Orochimaru stopped him. Boiling rain. It's him. Hyuga Haeyoung's face showed a ruthless expression. He bit Kiba tightly, and Kiba's gums were bleeding, and he slowly turned out an intermittent voice. Down. The seal. Kurigakure has found it. Luhan's voice sank. It was obvious that Boiling Yu would not abuse Hyuga Haeyoung for no reason. Kill me. Boiling rain will rely on this spell to find me. Kill me. Hyuga Haeyoung, who was in great pain, finally shouted. Don't move. Orochimaru crouched down and pressed the back of Hyuga Haeyoung's hand. Chakra quickly protruded. Luhan has subconsciously put his hand on the handle of the knife. His eyes are cold. Even if Boiling Rain could sense Hyuga Haeyoung through the curse mark, Luhan would not be able to kill Hyuga Haeyoung, otherwise all his efforts would be in vain. I can forcibly untie this curse seal, Orochimaru said after checking, standing up and looking back at Luhan, but it will also hurt Lord Haeyoung, and may even cause him to go into shock and die of serious injuries. Resolve. Luhan's eyes lit up, and he said quickly, you forcefully remove the curse mark, and I will heal him again. How long will it take to unlock the curse mark? At least an hour, Orochimaru replied, looked at Hyuga Haeyoung again, and pulled Hyuga Haeyoung on his back. We have to change the place first. This location has been sensed by the Boiling Rain. Kurigakure Base Camp. In the open space next to the ruins of the tower, the Boiling Rain, who had been cross-legged and hand-sealed for a long time, suddenly opened his eyes, and the corners of his mouth evoked a sinister smile. Just as the distant Hyuga Haeyoung was suffering to the end, Boiling Yu also sensed the position of Hyuga Haeyoung. I found it. Boiling Yu jumped up and was about to leave. My lord, this subordinate will go with you. Mundogen shouted, seeing Boiling Yu looking at him, and said again, this subordinate's speed is not much slower than that of the lord, and since the other party can keep Hyuga and Young silently rescued by the sound, I am afraid that the strength is extremely strong. Well, good. Boiling Yu nodded after a little indifference. Let's go. Chapter 0320-Senen's Smile. Before leaving the camp, according to Boiling Rain's order, Mundogen mobilized several battalions of Kurigakure ninjas to leave the camp and pursued them in the south. Leaving from the south of the southwest mountains, it will enter the coastal area, where Kurigakure has established a port, and Flying Ninja is going to spread the news to the Kurigakure ninja stationed in the southwest port, so that they can block the south of the southwest mountains as much as possible. The sky is getting brighter. In the dark forest, the two figures are moving at super high speed like the wind. The speed of the Boiling Rain of the Master's unique forbidden technique is extremely terrifying, and Mundogen is not inferior. As a scout, at least, the speed is faster than ordinary. The ninja is fast, so that we can transmit information in time and track the enemy. Although this criterion is not absolute, as the commander of the Kurigakure scout force, Mundogen's speed is also outrageous with all his strength. He is very powerful. The reason why Boiling Yu took Mundogen to act alone is because the speed of other ninjas is too slow. Boiling Yu can't move with the big army. It is impossible to catch people, and when they run past, no one knows where they are going. Before you know it, 2 hours later. The mountains in the southwest of the country of Vortex, in the extreme west, are still large forests. The wind of Chi-Chi suddenly sounded. From far to near, the wind blew, and the two figures suddenly stopped under the tree. Chirp! A loud chirping sounded from high above the sky, and the 9-member Flying Ninja team flew over Boiling Yu and Mundogen. At Kurigakure Base Camp, only Flying Ninja could keep up with Boiling Yu and Mundogen. Mundogen's speed. Boiling Yu and the two stopped, and the Flying Ninja team also stopped, hovering high in the sky. Just now, it's here, Boiling Yu said coldly, squinting and scanning the surroundings. These grasses have been crushed, and it seems that someone fell here. Mondogan crouched down, observed the grass he was heading towards, and asserted that the position he was looking at was where Hyuga Haeyoung had previously fallen due to severe pain. Two people. Mondogan, who had observed a few times, got up and said, "It's two people with Hyuga Haeyoung. Unless they kill Hyuga Haeyoung, otherwise." Boiling Yu gave a gloomy voice, and quickly sat cross-legged on the ground, his hands clasped together, and quickly hand seal, the chain-shaped curse mark crawled out of his sleeves again, covering his hands. Disappeared. Boy Yu, who had just closed his eyes, opened them instantly, a look of surprise flashed on his face. They really killed Hyuga Haeyoung. Or, forcibly broke the curse. Could it be that Danzo came? Konoha ninja who can forcibly break the spell. Danzo is the first thing that comes to mind. Call. Boiling Yu stood up all of a sudden, raised his hand and made several gestures to the sky. The meaning of these gestures is, separate search. Chirp. Shuadaing chirped. The 9 flying ninjas spread out in an instant and flew in different directions. Let's find them separately. Boiling Yu glanced at Mondogan and said, "Yes, my lord." Mondogan obeyed respectfully. The two ejected at the same time and ran in different directions. 2 hours have passed, and people may have run to a very far place, but for Boiling Yu, it is time to look for it. If those two really killed Hyuga Haeyoung, then they ran away. At least Hyuga Haeyoung died, and if they didn't kill Hyuga Haeyoung, they managed to remove the curse mark on Hyuga Haeyoung. It takes time to remove the curse seal. Boiling Yu is confident in his own abilities. He believes that even if someone can unlock the curse seal, it will take a long time. If they really cracked the spell, they should have been hiding somewhere for a long time before. Escape, will not escape too far. Boiling rain, which turned into a glimpse, moved several kilometers in the direction, and then stopped. The strange chakra fluctuations rippled around Boy Yu. In Boy Yu's consciousness, the whole world became hazy, and he felt a few kilometers behind him. Doan's chakra sensed the chakra of Fei Nin, who had already flown 10 kilometers away. The sensing range is getting bigger and bigger, and the chakra of the boiling rain is also rapidly being consumed in large quantities. Finally, the sensing range of boiling rain reaches the maximum. A radius of 100 kilometers. Boiling rain is in the center of the sensing range, so in fact, he can only sense whether there are chakra fluctuations 50 kilometers ahead, and can also sense 50 kilometers behind. Bastards, don't let you find you, otherwise. Boiling Yu didn't sense any strangeness in chakra of Hyuga Haeyoung, bit Kiba and muttered, dodged and disappeared in place. ... Somewhere in the far west of the southwest mountains, in a dark cave. Orochimaru leaned against the stone wall at the door, crossed his arms and stared blankly at the situation in the cave. Inside the cave, Hyuga Haeyoung crossed his knees and faced the stone wall, biting a rag in his mouth. His whole body was already covered in sweat, and his body was still shaking violently. His eyebrows were condensed into a pimple, and he was suffering tremendous pain. Luhan sat cross-legged behind Hyuga Haeyoung, his hands pressed on Hyuga Haeyoung's back. 2 groups of Yuhi light were surging, turning into wisps of Yuhi-colored airflow, constantly entering and leaving Hyuga Haeyoung's body. Orochimaru forcibly broke the spell seal on Hyuga Haeyoung, but also seriously injured Hyuga Haeyoung. Luhan had to use the technique of creating Yuan to treat Hyuga Haeyoung, otherwise Hyuga Haeyoung would die soon. Hyuga Haeyoung was just injured. In comparison, this kind of injury that has just occurred is the best cure. 2 minutes later, Luhan took his hands away from Hyuga Haeyoung's back, closed his eyes, and entered a state of pranayama. It is impossible for him to take out the potion to restore chakra in front of the two of them, and there is no need to do that. As a subversive, Luhan's chakra recovery is extremely fast. In this temporarily safe environment, there is no need to hurry. More than 10 minutes later, Luhan opened his eyes, hand sealed again, and pressed his hands on Hyuga Haeyoung's back. ... It was completely bright. In the far west of the southwest mountain range, a low mountain, a ghostly figure appeared on the cliff like the wind, and the blue-gray robe shook with the wind. The strange chakra fluctuations rose again on Boiling Yu, who closed his eyes. Time flies. Huh. Boiling suddenly opened his eyes, looked towards the high mountains more than 30 kilometers northeast, and then showed a sinister smile. I found you. Damn it.